Hello, and welcome to another episode of Break the Cycle with me, your host, Joshua Smith. I hope everyone's having a wonderful
Sunday.
Sunday night.
Special
Sunday. I didn't mess that up. We're not a usual Thursday night show. It's a Sunday night show because Iowa Caucus is tomorrow, and we have a good friend in town, so we wanted to bring him by the studio. I'm very excited for that. It is Sunday, and we don't have to compete with Tim Pool today, and I'm happy about it. For once.
You have to compete with playoff football.
And you know what? Tim Pool is stuck in Iowa right now. In the cold, having to deal with all this stuff. And so is Clint from Liberty Lockdown.
Oh, yeah.
And I sent him pictures before his plane left. I'm like, dude, better bring a big jacket. I would suggest you go get some nice, Wigger, Timberland Pro boots. It's gonna be rough, dude. And he's like, yikes, I don't want to go. Then I texted him right. Everything about it. Because he's from San Diego and then moved to Miami, Florida. I mean, it's like he doesn't know what
They should drive straight to Shields and just suit up.
Yeah, exactly. It's so bad. We got a great show for you guys tonight. I'm very excited. Of course, before we get too far into it, what I'm looking for, go check out Top Lobster and the myth, the legend, my good friend and partner on Break the Cycle, where you cannot get this great custom tailored suit that I'm wearing tonight, but you can get all kinds of great t-shirts, backpacks, hoodies. You can get a custom Break the Cycle pillow for your couch stream, and all kinds of great stuff using BTC. Or you can join the Patreon, subscribe star, become a member of the YouTube channel under all of my videos by hitting the join link, where you can get into a private Discord server and get up to 30% off of all of his new gear 2 weeks before it goes to the general public if he ever puts it here. Ryan will moderate that.
Yeah. I think he did like a sponsorship with some company. That's the only gear that he's put out recently.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. I'll talk to Top. We need to have him on too, because the Nephilim Death Squad is blowing up. He's already doing better numbers. I'm proud of my good friend Top. Guys, I said we got a great show for you tonight. I'm very excited. Let's check in with our great co-host, wonderful haired co-host, Mr. Ryan Kurtz. Sir, how are you doing?
Doing pretty good. Doing pretty cold because it is negative 10 degrees outside and not a whole lot of fun. I had to break out all the hardcore winter gear today.
Negative 10 degrees, but it feels like negative 45 with the wind chill. That's insane. I've never felt anything like that. Also from California. This is my fourth winter here, though. I'm not used to it. We're not using monitors now that I don't have to listen to the intro.
I went to a football game in these temperatures once.
Yes, that's
and it was a Bears-Packers game, and I'm a Vikings fan.
Wow. Oh, hey, I'm gonna go live in hell to watch my rivals play each other. Smart.
It was to spend time with my family who are Bears and Packers fans.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's got to be
Quality time.
Yeah. Also, my other great co-host, Mr. AJ. How are you doing?
Good evening and greetings. Excited. Chinese spy balloon free. And even though I'm sitting next to a retired cop, I'm still a little nervous. A little nervous. Yeah.
He's one of the good ones.
My spidey senses are tingling.
AJ's our resident felon.
Hi guys. I'm fine.
We love
everything's fine.
Somebody's saying my mic needs to be turned up a bit, Josh. Okay. Ooh. What is it? My mic that needs to be turned up or somebody else's? You guys let me know in the chat. I didn't. Also tonight, become my good friend over the. I thought at one point I was going to have to dig deep dirt on Mr. Maat and play oppositional research, but I've come to like the guy a lot. I think his plan's great. It's somebody that I wouldn't. Should I not get the nomination, Mr. Mike Maat, sir? How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing really well. It's just an absolute joy to be with you. And interestingly, it is not merely a myth that you have a fantastic family and a beautiful wife, and you're living the high life here.
Yeah.
I have to admit, I am really touched to be able to have spent some time with you here.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad to have you over. We always promise dinner to guests.
I got the taco special.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We eat a lot of tacos and
sat with the
spaghetti.
kids. Sat with the kids who taught me how to eat a taco proper.
They're saying my mix is low. I don't know why my mix would be. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Break the Cycle with me, your host, Joshua Smith. Is that better? I'm the only one with a like an inline preamp on too, so I can't turn it up too loud.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it sounds good to us. I'm interested in knowing that AJ is feeling the the tingly spider senses.
Yeah.
He's making me tingle a little bit too. I'm not sure that's because he's a felon. He's just an interesting sort of guy.
Yes.
So I want to know what's making
Opposites
him feel
attract.
tingly.
Yeah, you guys just let me know. I did fix the mic there a little bit. It's probably a lot louder now. So if there's anything wrong with it, you guys just let us know in the chat. Still, I'll keep working on the mix. If you don't know that we actually went to like a full setup here with a rack mount audio kit. So I'm not perfect at the mix yet. But if it's worse, let me know. I can see the audio playing. I can see it playing in the chat here. So. If it keeps cutting out, I don't know what else to do at this point. But I'm going to try and fix it. It's in the red. It's in the red. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we got a lot to talk about. Of course, the Iowa caucus is tomorrow. The Libertarian Party has its first chance in history. First time ever.
First time ever.
Yeah, ever to have.
First in the nation. First ever.
First in the nation and first ever
First in your
Libertarian
hearts.
Party caucus, because we are a major party now, thanks to Rick Stewart, who ran for governor here and got big enough numbers to become a major party status. Mike, how does it feel to know that you're in one of the greatest libertarian states in the country?
It's fantastic. I wish every state were more like Iowa, and I think that we could all say that for any number of reasons, except for the weather.
Yeah.
You know, I do like the ballot access, but the warm basement access is just as good.
Yeah, it's nice having the
just as
warm
good.
basement
Yeah,
for sure.
Warm
And-
basement
Yeah.
is almost as important.
Yeah, absolutely. So we got every presidential candidate in the country's in town this last week. Vivek, obviously, traveling around the whole state, if you haven't noticed, with Clint and Timcast and like other people.
Yeah.
Also, Trump was here. DeSantis, a lot of people don't know this. DeSantis has 2 permanent Iowa buses parked right up the street from my house, right up 50th Street here. And he constantly is in Iowa. He's been in Iowa a ton for the last, I don't know, 3 or 4 months.
And he's in trouble, no?
Yeah, but he's actually pretty popular here in Iowa, and I would say, especially in the Des Moines metro area, which has a lot of control over elections in Iowa, just like any other big city. It's not a really big city. With 700,000 people in Des Moines or something, it's not very much.
That's a
Des Moines
big city.
Metro is
That's a
like
big city.
400,000 at most.
Is it 400,000?
Yeah, just Des Moines is like 400K, but if you include surrounding areas, yeah.
I think
That's a big
the
city.
full metro is like 400,000.
I think the Iowa only has like 1.4 million or something in total, right? Or 1.7 million in
I think
total?
it's like 2.
2 million?
Only have 2 million people here.
Okay.
Something like that.
I thought we had more than that.
Maybe not. I thought it was 2.2 million. I think. I'm not sure.
Anyways, let me know if the audio is still working, cutting out. I can see it in the mix, so I don't know how it would be cutting out. If it's cutting out, it's something's going on there. But yeah, DeSantis. So somebody asked me recently, they were like, "Hey, who do you think's going to take second place in Iowa for the Republicans?" Because everybody knows that Trump's going to win, even in Iowa.
Yep.
And a lot of people are like, "Oh, Vivek is so popular in Iowa." And I'm like, I live in Iowa, dude. He's not. They're like, well, Mike Lee, he endorsed him and this and that. And I'm like, listen, I've seen 3 Vivek signs in Des Moines Metro the entire election season. He is not that popular here. It is gonna be DeSantis number 2, if not number 1. I'm guaranteeing that when it comes to the Republicans, it's going to be DeSantis number 2, or maybe possibly number 1, because he is so popular here, and a lot of people are just kind of done with Trump in Iowa too. What are you seeing when you're traveling around, Mike? You've been all over the country for the last couple months.
Been all over the country. I think that the Vivek Ramaswamy thing is ready to go south. I'm selling Vivek short this week. I'm going short on DeSantis. As a matter of fact, are we allowed to discuss maybe putting $10 on you saying DeSantis is going to come in second?
I don't just think. I think there's a chance DeSantis could take first here. Honestly,
no, I hear you.
Yeah.
I hear you.
Yeah.
I'm taking you up on that because I know, just like me, you're a big Nikki Haley fan.
Oh.
And
I hate Nikki Haley.
I know you do.
Yeah.
I just enjoyed saying that. I'm going to go out and say Nikki's got a decent chance of, now that Chris Christie is out, she's got a decent chance of beating Ron.
Not in Iowa.
Just saying.
And
Just saying.
I'll tell you, I've seen one Nikki Haley sign the entire election.
Yeah, but
season
it's
in the
big,
state.
loud, and obnoxious.
Yeah, just like her. Of course.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. And did you see the meme where it's her and Vivek yelling at each other and they're just saying a bunch of like
Oh yeah.
Indian
Yep.
Punjabi stuff? It's so messed up, but it's hilarious. I don't like anybody in the race less than I like Nikki Haley. She's an absolute piece of shit war hawk to the max. One of the worst candidate running this year. There is no doubt about it. The fact that she's got any legs at all to stand on in the United States of America blows me away. If she had her way, she would have her fingers on the nukes to bomb
Absolutely.
the Middle East. There's no doubt about it whatsoever. This is the thing. Like that first Republican debate, I watched with Nikki Haley and Vivek where they started arguing. Vivek also plays this, I'm an anti-war guy. I'm going to stop all these wars. And then they spent 10 minutes arguing about who was going to support Israel harder, right?
Yeah,
right.
And who was going to go to war for Israel harder. And I'm like, how is anybody listening to this guy? First of all, how is anyone listening to Nikki Haley about anything? She's terrible. But listening to this guy who's talked about being anti-war and being the libertarian candidate, right? This whole time. And all of a sudden he's talking about how much he's going to support Israel. They're arguing about who's going to support Israel harder. To me, that's just like, that's a red flag to begin with. But then you start learning about how he did the big pharma pump and dumps. He worked with big pharma. He cried during January 6th and for the Congress people, and they're scared for their lives and all this stuff.
Yeah, I got to call BS on that too.
Yeah,
I got to
right?
call BS. I think that Vivek is, at his core, he's a politician. I think that he's positioning himself as a libertarian because he thinks it'll get him some traction. I don't think it's at his core.
Sure.
That's my take on him. And that's why I think it's so easy for him to talk about invading Mexico and supporting Israel and some of the other stupid things he says, because I don't think he's actually a libertarian.
Right.
What do you think of that?
No, I don't think he's a libertarian either.
No.
I think that a lot. So libertarians are so fed up with what we consider to be the deep state, right? And the secretarial state, as he calls it as well, right? Like we're talking about all these bureaucracies basically that really run the country, right? And as soon as Vivek was like, "Oh, I'm going to destroy this part of the state," libertarians like, "Yeah," and we do this a lot. We did this with Surf Mommy from Hawaii too. What's her name? Tulsi Gabbard, right?
Tulsi.
We did the same thing with her, right?
Yeah, she gets like
Surf
two
Mommy.
issues right, and all of a sudden, we're pulling the curtain back.
Yeah, it was like she was good on the anti-war stuff for a moment.
Yep.
Because she's gone off the deep end with the war stuff now too, right? And then I'm like, okay, yes, she's like that Homer Simpson meme where he's like skinny, and then you look at his back, and it's like all these fat piles held up by safety pins. And it's like Federal Reserve, anti-gun, socialist monetary policy. It's like how many policies are you okay with being bad on if they have one good policy or two good policies? And Vivek's got some good policies. I want to smash the FBI. I want to smash the CIA. I want to smash the DEA.
He's very good on fighting the
4D.
blob. He's very good and very detailed and very thoughtful about it. You got to give him that, but that's not enough.
He's the only other candidate that's spoken out about Title 40, and I talked
Besides
to
me,
him
yeah.
about
Yeah,
that.
it's good.
I told him that I heard about it from you.
Yeah, well, and I still, a lot of people gave me shit when I said he stole that platform plank from me because there's only one person that was running for president this year at all that talked about that at all, and it was Larry Elder. But Larry Elder has always been really big on saving the family, which I've appreciated about Larry Elder. Being from California, Larry Elder is one of the very few politicians in California that you're like, yeah, that guy's all right on some stuff, right? And then Vivek goes on Clint and Timcast and all these other podcasts that surround us, right? And all of a sudden he's talking about Title 40 and saving the family relationship. And I'm like, I know you saw my platform. I know for a fact, if you were on Clint's show, and you're following his Twitter, you're seeing my Twitter. For sure, there's no doubt. And I've posted that platform plank repeatedly. So, I think it's an important platform plank. Can we get you to commit to ending Title 40?
Oh, 100%. As a matter of fact, I was going to say, to be fair, I sent you a clip. You probably don't remember it. You may not have noticed it in the first place. I talked about it 2 years ago in Florida, the Florida convention. And I didn't get the sense that we were getting a whole lot of traction on it. And I commend you for raising it and pounding it hard because it is an important issue.
Well, and who's a better person to talk about it than the guy raising 7 kids, including adopted kids?
Yeah, no.
Who had nowhere to go but
Exactly.
foster care. And And so it's a really, a lot of people will be like, oh, that's just your pet project issue. I'm like, no, it's like the crux of what's wrong with America today, right? Like before Gerald Ford signed this into law in 1975, there was like 1 in 60 homes that were fatherless home. That's 1 in 4 in that short amount of time. That's a huge problem.
I think it needs to be said that the social policy in the United States, the financial policy that actually is social policy, right? The social policy of the federal government of the United States is bad for us, not just financially, but socially, culturally. It really undermines our families and our entire way of life. That may sound a little bit melodramatic, but I'm dead serious. I commend you for pounding this issue. And I think that it speaks volumes about all of the issues that the government gets involved in.
Sure.
We complain about the financial aspect, but at their core, there is some piece of it that is just not good for you, even if you can afford it. It's bad for you.
Right. No, I agree. I agree fully. And I think we obviously see eye to eye on a lot, almost everything. I mean,
yeah.
But before we go too far in it, we did get a couple of super chats. Thanks for $2 super chat, Kevin Brady. He said Haley is George Bush with a landing strip. Nice. And Joshua Smith's 4,269th kid.
Yeah.
I always mess this up.
Yeah.
It's
42069.
yeah, it's
I think we follow each other.
It's a satire guy. I love this guy to death, by the way. He acts like he's my 42nd thousand.
That's funny,
child.
actually. That's funny.
He's been a member for 16 months of the show. Thank you so much, dude. He said, Mike, do you think you can win the West Michigan vote based on your last name alone?
Yes, actually, probably. Western Michigan is probably the only place in the United States that doesn't say, gee, that's a weird name, right? As a matter of fact, if I were in Western Michigan, I don't believe I'd be the only Mike Termott.
Yeah, those are the other Mike Termotts. That's where they all live in West
There
Michigan.
are several Mike Termotts in the United States, but probably most of them in Western Michigan. I had family in Holland, Michigan, that is. Holland, in the Netherlands as well. But it is all Dutch out there. It's a beautiful country. The people are fantastic. And that is different from New York Dutch,
Sure.
as you may know. 2 waves of Dutch immigration in the United States. The first was to New York, and the second was to Michigan. And that's where my family comes from. I grew up outside of Chicago in Dutch garbage. The Chicago garbage industry was all Dutch.
Oh, wow.
In the 20th century, and that's where my family was making its money.
Do you want to know something really cool about my family? So you know Bertolli, the olive company that does like the biggest olive oil company in the world?
Absolutely.
My grandfather's family actually owned the olive farms that they bought to become Bertolli.
Oh, wow.
They sold it. I can't remember the exact year. My grandpa has a book, but I could have been the olive heir. I could have been the guy.
Right.
And instead, his family, they were farmers and hunters, Italian farmers and hunters, and they sold it. And so I did not get to be the olive heir, and they sold it for way under what it would be worth now.
Can you imagine?
I'd be the
and
olive
if
heir.
Bertolli was your distributor.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine.
I'd be the olive heir, my friend.
Well, similarly, I could have been the garbage guy in Chicago, but my grandfather sold to a company that sold to Wayne Huizinga.
Okay.
I don't know if you're familiar with that name.
I'm not.
Consolidate. Well, trust me then. He consolidated all of Chicago garbage and then New York garbage and then American garbage. And that's how Waste Management, Inc. came into being one of the biggest industrial firms in the United States.
Nice.
There's money in garbage.
Yeah, there's a lot of money in garbage.
Where was organized crime in trash? Was that New York or Jersey?
I think the
In a
whole
lot of
East
places.
Coast.
Yeah, a lot of
Yeah.
places.
I know for sure Massachusetts. I mean, the organized crime in Massachusetts ran everything for a long time. And in fact, I was talking about this the other day, today actually, before I came to the debate, because I was talking to my wife about Mike, and I was like, he's one of the candidates running that I actually really like, and I'd run with him, or he could run with me, or anything like that. I'd be totally fine with. I'd be fine with him getting the nomination. I think that's one of the very few people in the party right now running that I'd vote for. And we were talking about that, and then I was like, and there has been some allegations of him being a little like Gary Johnson. I don't necessarily believe that, but we were talking about Gary Johnson. Oh, Gary Johnson, he was from where? I'm like, he was a 2-term governor of New Mexico, and he ran with governor of Massachusetts, Bill Weld, who I can't stand, by the way.
Right.
I am definitely if there were allegations you'd be like Bill Weld. You probably
That would
wouldn't
make
be
you
on
like
there.
Bill Weld. That would
Yeah.
be really weird, right?
And but Bill Weld it's very known that when he was the governor of Massachusetts, he had links to the mafia in Boston, the Irish mob, and he hung out with a lot of the Irish mobsters and drank a lot and all that stuff too. But yeah, I mean, the Irish mob ran Massachusetts for
Was that Whitey? Was that Whitey Bulger?
Whitey Bulger.
Yes.
And that,
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who was
so-
only caught recently.
Who was an FBI informant the entire
Yeah,
time?
don't they always seem to end up that way? The Bull and all them guys.
But he was the kind that was like, yeah, I almost got him. I just need some more time. Yeah.
So
It's
what do you
amazing what you will sell to save your butt.
Oh yeah, no shit. So what do you say to the allegations that you're just another Gary Johnson?
I don't see it. I honestly don't see it. I don't even know where it comes from. As a matter of fact, you're the only person who has said it to me. But
That's not true.
No, that's not true.
I watched
Who
The
else said
System
it
Is
to me?
Down. I watched The System Is Down religiously. Dan Smots is a very good friend of mine. Dan Smots and Dave Casey both called you out on it on the show when you were on The System Is Down.
Well, I believe you, but they say a lot of weird things,
They
and
do.
I don't
Dave
keep
Casey.
track of that.
He's the one that called me your throw pillow.
Yeah. Dave Casey called him my throw pillow on the
Yeah,
show.
he said,
Okay.
I'm not his friend or his co-host.
Yeah.
He doesn't come over and eat dinner with my family every week. And
Yeah,
hang
well,
out.
I can vouch for the fact that he is a lot more than your throw pillow, and I think that is the clock striking 13 on that little podcast that you mentioned there. So I wouldn't put a lot of credibility in that. I have often said that if nothing else, there is a lot that we can learn from Gary's campaigns, and I have often said that it was not him forgetting what Aleppo is that caused his campaign to collapse. The fact that he forgot what Aleppo was, he could have survived that if he had given his followers enough reason to hang on to him, but he hadn't. And I often point out that the real contrast to be drawn there is between him and Donald Trump, who said famously, they say I could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue without losing a great deal of support. And I think it needs to be said for all of your listeners that shooting someone on Fifth Avenue is actually worse than forgetting the name of a town in Syria. Sure. To be fair. But I'm not sure Trump was wrong, right? I mean, he's a buffoon. And, I was in New York in the 80s, so I've gone 40 years with all kinds of reasons to dislike Donald Trump. But Donald Trump could do a lot of things dumber than forgetting what Aleppo was. And people are not going to give up on him because they know why they like him. They know why they hate him. And not so with Gary Johnson. That's why his campaign collapsed.
Yeah, and I will say when I was on Timcast, I had an Aleppo moment. Legitimately. We were talking about Syria and Aleppo, and then he brought up the Gary Johnson thing, and I said, the capital of Syria, Aleppo. And he's
Damascus,
like,
buddy.
Damascus is the capital. And I knew that.
Yeah.
But here's the thing: is the capital of the governorate of Syria is Aleppo, and
So technically you were right.
Technically, I was right. No, it wasn't. It was. I know Damascus. I knew Damascus. I know Damascus is the capital of Syria, but I always hear Aleppo constantly, and so it just was stuck in my mind. And then I knew that it was the governorate capital, which is different than the actual country capital.
Well, but this makes our point is that you can make a mistake. I can make a mistake. It is not important in the grand scheme of things when you are out there telling people what is it you stand for, and you make your agenda known, you make your platform known and understood. You completely differentiate from the other candidates, the other parties. What you have to say is a hell of a lot more important than passing some geography quiz.
Well, I ventured to say that I would have taken a candidate that didn't know where Syria was over any candidate that's going to put us in war with Syria, right? And all this talk about Donald Trump, being the anti-war candidate in 2016, he didn't start any new wars. That's the big claim to fame. He didn't start any new wars, but he didn't take us out of any wars either. In fact, Joe Biden ended more wars than Donald Trump did.
True.
Yeah.
That's a crazy thing to think about.
Mm-hmm.
Truthfully.
Well, he went and found one to replace it real quick,
Of
though.
course,
So,
of course, yeah. But Donald Trump didn't end any wars at all. In fact, he did almost get us into war with Iran when he had his security forces droned, if you remember that. And that, at the end of the day, the military-industrial complex, what they want is a war with Iran. That's what they want. They really want that big hot war with Iran, because that's going to be the one that makes us all the money and gets us all the power in the Middle East that we want, right? And
I think it would be good for the military-industrial complex immediately in terms of profitability. Look, it's a multi-theater war. It's going to be a drawn-out conventional war. It's going to be on land, on sea, in the air. Think of all the different ways that, if you were an arms dealer, right? Think of all the different ways that you could benefit from that. You know, you got the Red Sea, and you got the Suez Canal, and you got the Mediterranean. You've got in Iran, you've got in Iraq, you've got in Syria, right? You've got in Israel, you've got the Palestinian territory. There is almost nothing in the Middle East that you couldn't touch with this war.
Yeah.
And then you got Victor Boot, the arms dealer, the Russian, remember?
Sure, yeah.
The Merchant of Death.
Yeah, they got.
He's free now.
Yeah.
But we got
Right time
we got
for
Griner
almost
back,
a hot
right?
war with Russia.
Can we
Yeah.
get him on the podcast?
Probably. Yeah.
Can we
I bet
Most likely.
I bet we could. I just want to hold up for 1 second. I just want to say Dave Casey is in the chat and said, "Sorry to your co-host Josh. He's Happy New Year." And Dave, I stopped. Dave was really mad at me because I was going at Rechtenwald pretty hard. Well, it wasn't even really me going at Rechtenwald. It was like my supporters going at Rechtenwald, and some of them still do, except he's blocked most of them. But Dave Casey was always like one of my best friends in the party, like legitimately, like loved the guy to death. And we had a falling out, obviously, over the Mike Heiss and Misa stuff that was going on a couple months ago. But I did see him say some nice things about me recently, and I just want him to know that, it's all water under the bridge. I love you to death. I'll see you at some convention somewhere, and I'll buy you a beer. Anyways, Joshua Smith's son also gives $5 super chat. He said, "Ryan isn't your throw pillow, but he's definitely your body pillow."
I'd make a great body pillow.
Why is everything with Ryan always gay?
He's got good hair.
He does. He does.
It's
He's got gay hair for sure.
I don't know about gay hair. It's good hair. It's good
your
hair.
son's in the group chat with the homies with me.
Yeah.
Bunch of the group chat is in here, and of course,
Okay.
the group chat has got to be somewhat gay.
Yeah, group chat always gets gay. That's how it works. It's like
Listen.
it's like a Roman bathhouse.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Ryan wears glasses, but if he usually like IT kind of glasses guys, they take the glasses off and they turn nerdy. He turns strikingly handsome.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, check it out.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you do.
I
Without
know.
the
That's a handsome dude,
look at that. Look at that.
Yeah, I know. I'm a pretty good.
right?
He gets-
Ethnically ambiguous, maybe.
Dude, I can. show
No,
you
do
guys
you remember?
like
Don't
photos.
feed us ego. Do you remember the time on the show when he said I'm objectively the best looking guy on the show? Do you remember when he said that? Do you remember that?
Objectively, I like that. Objectively, that's quite an assertion.
Yeah, that's quite an assertion. Dude.
I think I am.
Yeah, we know you do. We know you think you are. Because AJ's the best looking guy on the show. I'm gonna let you know, dude. Look at that mustache.
I think you got some tough competition here,
You
brother.
can't beat that mustache,
We
dude.
all got good.
No, I don't. I have a terrible.
We all have dad vibes now, though.
Yeah, we all have
Oh,
dad
dad
vibes.
vibes,
now,
yeah.
for sure. So, Mike, why don't you? We're kind of mid like a third of the way through the show here. And,
Are we?
well, yeah, we haven't talked a lot about your campaign. I want to know about the Gold New Deal. Now, I want
Sure.
you to understand. I've done a lot of research. Okay, I have not read through your Gold New Deal yet. I apologize.
that's got to hurt my feelings.
I should. And
That
I
hurts
know
my
I-
feelings a little bit.
It sucks because when the race started kind of heating up here the last couple of months, I went into hibernation because we were having a baby
Yeah,
and the
of course,
holidays
of
and all that stuff.
course.
So of course I had to miss Massachusetts and Connecticut, and then I just missed Arizona this weekend. But that was because of weather.
Yeah.
We're back on the campaign trail. We're back traveling and all that stuff. But I would like to know from your mouth what the new Gold Deal is and what's going to do for America.
What it's all about. Well, the basic idea is that we need a new relationship between us and our government, right? As we often say, we need a new relationship between us and the government we will tolerate. So it means changing the government and thereby changing the relationship between us and our government. So, for example, this is not the flagship, but I think it makes the point. One of the things that we talk about is to the extent to which the federal government needs money, and we would all argue that it should be needing a lot less money than it thinks it needs, right? But set that issue aside just for 10 seconds. To the extent to which it needs money at all, it shouldn't be coming to us directly. It should not be coming to individuals to get that money. Anyone who has been audited by the IRS, as I have been, knows that that's a weird relationship between the federal government and you.
I'm still. It's ongoing for almost 3 years now that the IRS has been holding my biggest tax refund ever.
Oy.
Because they automatically decided that none of my dependents were my dependents without any
Yeah,
evidence.
yeah,
And then
yeah.
they wanted a mountain of paperwork. I sent it all in, and I've got
And the burden of
no
proof is
response.
on you.
Oh, totally.
The burden of proof is on you. No, it's absolutely disgusting. And that's another element of that relationship that's just totally inappropriate. So we talk about this being the big reason. A lot of libertarians talk about getting rid of the IRS. this is the big reason for us, is that we believe that relationship supporting the federal government financially, and we all agree it should be smaller no matter how it raises its money, but that to the extent to which you need an income tax, you should be going to state legislatures for that. I believe that we need states to stand up for us a little bit rather than just caving in and saying, in effect, sure, go after Joshua, right? The state of Iowa is saying, no, we don't want any part of standing up for Josh. Just, you go shake him down for whatever you can get. I just think, mathematics aside, numbers aside, I just find that an inappropriate relationship. So that's an example.
Sure. And a lot of people are hearing this stand up for somebody thing, which is what the states were supposed to do. I mean, that was the relationship between the states and the federal government and the people, right? And a lot of people don't know that because we've lived under this federal centralized government rule for so long. But the federal government, what they've done, and smartly so, is that they've decided like, hey, we're going to subsidize your state entirely. We're going to subsidize all these things, constantly things. You're going to be getting money from the federal government. But in doing so, we're going to have all the power over your state as well, right? And that's kind of how, the mafia works, right? Like this is a protection racket. That's all the government really is.
They take money from your constituents and they give it back to the state, but with strings attached, right? So they get their way and they can control you financially. Therefore, they can control you politically. It's really disgusting. So the flagship of the Gold New Deal is the idea that states ought to have a right to opt out of federal supremacy and ought to have the right to unilaterally resolve conflicts between state law and federal law. So in state court, by the way. So in effect, it would be a nullification proposition. And there have been those in the Libertarian Party who have effectively teased me saying, well, can't we just, we have the 10th Amendment already. Can't we just pass the 10th Amendment over again and say, this time we mean it? Which I think is a lovely idea. And if I thought that could politically fly, I would be, right. Wouldn't you sign on to that? Another amendment. This is the 10th Amendment. It's over again. This time we mean it.
Yeah, this time it's for real.
Would be
yeah.
really funny to try to
wouldn't it?
An amendment that is literally the 10th Amendment, word for word.
And then we mean
see
it.
how many people don't notice.
Yeah, don't even. Yeah. They'll be like, "That's crazy. That's a crazy amendment. We can't have that amendment." And then you're like, "It's already amendment." You know what I mean?
it speaks volumes, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It really speaks volumes. Of course, you would want to do the same thing with the Second Amendment, and then eventually with the First Amendment, we're going to have to do it over again too. A lot of the juice behind, a lot of the motivation behind.
Oh, you can't say the Jews on here. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It occurred to me.
It's a shutdown every time.
Yeah. I got to be a little bit careful. I don't know who's listening. A lot of the impetus behind that flagship proposition that states ought to have a right to nullification, a right to opt out of federal supremacy, came from an observation that my team made that there really is tremendous movement in this country for secession. And no matter how you feel about secession, some of us think it's a good idea. Some of it think it's, maybe not a perfect silver bullet, right? But no matter how you feel about it, if anyone says they haven't thought about it, I got to call BS. You have thought about it, right? Maybe you've decided there's a better way to try to get what we want, and maybe you haven't decided that. But no matter how you feel about secession, it has crossed your mind. I was in Florida at the convention when we voted. I was actually already moved out of Florida, so I wasn't voting, but they voted. I was there. They voted to secede.
I was there.
And think about that, because the vote wasn't, we have the right to secede, right? The vote was,
we vote to secede.
Exactly. How rich is that?
Right after that vote, I auctioned off one of Top Slop's the shirts that was the United States with Florida kind of going away from it. It says, "It's not you, it's me."
Yeah.
Right? And there's a picture of me holding up the shirt on stage. I was at that convention.
Yeah.
I think I've only missed 2 Florida State conventions since 2017.
No, it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. And one of the things that I found so interesting is that the convention gave itself a standing ovation. I don't remember other circumstances when a group of folks took a vote and were so proud of their own vote, right? That they stood up and cheered. It was really remarkable.
And there were some people that were really upset with that vote too, by the way.
Oh, sure. I mean, and I understand that as well. And there are people who believe that there is some value, at least potentially, in preserving the federal government. I think most of us are a little skeptical of that
Right.
proposition.
Especially people who've worked with the federal government, surprisingly. Yeah.
Well, and people who haven't worked for the federal government are skeptical as well.
Well, I think that's technically only AJ and I that haven't worked with the federal
Yeah, well, I was a
government.
federal contractor. I was just a maintenance guy once. It's not a big deal. Just everyone relax.
Well, you were in the Navy, which
Oh, yeah, I was in the
working with
Navy,
the
too.
federal
That's right.
government.
I try to block that part of my life out. You know what I mean?
Well,
That's
we're
called
proud of your
repression.
service.
Thanks.
And I appreciate why you're today skeptical of what it was that the Navy may have wanted to manipulate you into doing,
Oh,
right?
Yeah. Yep.
But nonetheless, I'm proud of your commitment to your community as you viewed it at the time.
Yeah, I joined right after 9/11. I talk about this on the show all the time,
Yeah.
but I joined months after 9/11 because I was like, a homeless 17-year-old kid. Basically, my mom and I didn't get along. I was staying on a garage floor at a friend's house, and he woke me up real early in the morning one day. I was like, dude, check this out. And I looked. I'm like, what movie is this? He's like, this is really happening. And I'm like, no way. We're under attack. I got to go protect my family. And then I'm like, less than a year later, I'm at war in Iraq going, why are we in fucking Iraq?
Yeah.
Of all the places.
Yeah, connect the dots for me.
Yeah, wait a minute. Iraq? I swear this was I thought this was Pakistani nationals via Saudi Arabia. They found the passports at the bottom of the rubble. I don't understand what's going on here. And why am I at war with Iraq? But really that set me down the path of oh, I don't think we're the good guys anymore.
Yeah,
you know what I
it'll
mean?
wake you up, won't
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a great clip from Family Guy about that where they show up at the 9/11 memorial. Peter's like, oh, so this is where the ground zero. Peter's like, oh, this is where the first guy contracted AIDS. Brian's like, no, this is where the 9/11 attacks happened. And then they go through.
Was this Family Guy?
Yeah, this was
That's
Family
right.
Guy. And it was like, oh, so they were, they were from Iraq or whatever. All of that. And
I think
he's like,
I've
oh
seen
no, it was Saudi Arabia and
They
Pakistan.
go through
and
all the
whatnot.
Middle Eastern
He's like-
countries.
Peter concludes with, oh, so we should invade Iran.
Exactly. And that's how our federal government works, folks. And you know what sucks is Seth MacFarlane's such a shit. He's such a he was on, I was either Bill Maher or one of those shows, and they were like, the government lied to us about the vaccine and this and that and this and that, and he's like no, they didn't. Can you show me any proof of that? People should be forced to take that. And I'm like, dude,
Wow.
you make Family Guy, man.
Well,
You're the guy who's like,
I find that hard to believe. That
I
he
swear,
said
I'll show
that.
you the clip. I'll show you the
Hey,
clip.
do you
That
know
is
what
something. That is a
Brian,
disappointment.
Brian is?
Huh.
Brian is a representation of Seth MacFarlane's political views. That is the character of Brian.
Wow.
I'll have to.
Yeah.
That's going to take some thinking, some deep thinking.
Boy, that sets you back, doesn't it?
Could you imagine Matt Stone or Trey Parker going on TV saying that they feel like everyone should be forced to take
Unimaginable.
it? Unimaginable.
Unimaginable.
Absolutely.
Oh, I could see them doing it
As a joke, maybe.
yeah, ironic.
As a troll.
But you'd know it was ironic. You'd know that they were being sarcastic.
Yeah.
There would be no doubt in your mind.
Well, they would do something over the top, pulling out a needle and being
Yeah.
injecting themselves and being oh, they're
Straight in the
trying to
vein. Yeah.
vaccine.
Yeah. Exactly. It's true. That's
Now,
true.
tell me the truth. When you meet someone who says, "No, I think that the mask mandates or vaccine requirement, something in this category, I think that was a good idea." Don't you do a slight double take, like you're kidding, right? Like you're being sarcastic, right? Before you realize, oops, no, this person really means it.
It's
I talk to
chilling.
them on holidays.
Yeah, it's chilling because you know that they can't be persuaded with facts. You know that
Right,
person,
right.
you could tell them exactly what the truth is, and they wouldn't believe it. They would still keep believing what they believe.
yeah. It's
chilling.
well, and
Chilling is
you
the right
guys
word.
remember being here in 2021
Mm-hmm.
when we moved here in August after you
Yeah.
came on the show. But prior to that, even when I was doing the show in beginning of 2021 in the old house by myself, I said it repeatedly, and I've said it in front of both of you guys. It's going to take at least a generation to get rid of the mental illnesses caused by the COVID regime. And I'm not saying because they took vaccines. I'm not saying because they put on the mask. I'm saying that all of that stuff combined ruined an entire generation of young people to the point of where I'm still seeing posts on Twitter of people saying, I haven't gone anywhere in 3 years. And I'm like, and these are like perfectly healthy people. And I'm like, I never stopped. I remember when it first started, I was running for chair of the national party.
I remember.
And I was in Illinois. I was the keynote speaker in Illinois. In fact, my wife now went and met with me in Illinois. She drove up there or over there to spend the weekend with me. I was a keynote speaker there. I ran a presidential debate. I was actually the moderator for a presidential debate on my birthday, March 13th. And one of the presidential candidates brought me a cake. It was very nice. And I flew home, and California was shutting down. That was on the spot, you know, and I changed nothing. Stands the birth of both my boys in hospitals, and the time that I took my family to Disney World 2 years ago. We didn't put masks on. We didn't stop going out to eat. We didn't stop going places. We kept traveling. I remember when I was flying around that campaign, I would hop on planes. They'd put me on a plane, and I'd be one of 5 people on the plane. Like nobody was even flying anywhere.
Yep.
And at that time, like even though I was like, hey, look, this is all bullshit. I'm telling you can find my tweets from 2020, the beginning of 2020, April 2020, where I was calling this bullshit already. Okay, I'm very public about this stuff. But even though I was calling it bullshit, at that time, I understood some of the response from normal people because they're being force-fed this propaganda.
Mm-hmm.
It's scary. You know, it's worse than Ebola, right? Like, that's scary. That's something that's going to be to the normal person who doesn't dig a little deeper and doesn't understand that the government's probably lying to us about shit. It's going to be scary. So I understood it. Now, almost 4 years later, literally, we're 3 months from the 4-year mark, right?
Yeah.
No, 2 months. 2 months from the
We're very close.
Yeah.
1 month from the 4-year mark. 4 fucking years that these people haven't gone out of their homes. You can't fix that in a couple of years.
No.
Propaganda works.
It does.
Yeah.
That's the message. It's a real shame, and it works in ways that I think even the government wouldn't have anticipated. Like, even if you were Mr. Propaganda, right, and that was your shtick, like, I love propaganda, I want more. You would even, it's a great line. You would be surprised by how well this works. I mean, you'd have to say, wow. That is something.
Yeah, I think
for it to take hold.
I think pushing the masks was impressive.
The mask was impressive, but here's the thing.
I can't
it's
believe
like
that
it's like, you know, all governments learn from Nazi Germany, right? Like the ultimate propagandists, including Israel, who's now the ultimate propagandist, but we won't get into that on the show. Not with Maat here, at least. You know, I don't know how far he wants to go to that, but it's funny that the people that the propaganda was used against the hardest now use the biggest propaganda in the world.
Mm-hmm.
I've always found that hilarious. And you know, obviously I have family from Israel and stuff, so I know a little bit, but so yeah, it's
all
just
good.
It's one of those things.
Where's your family in Israel?
Tel Aviv.
Nice.
Yeah. So
Nice.
have
you been?
Distant family? No, I haven't.
You've got
I've
to.
never gone. I know everyone says that, but
You've got to.
I'm
Now,
not supporting. Not supporting them right
Maybe not right now.
No, maybe not this week. And it's tough for you to travel right now because you've got kids, and I have witnessed them. I've seen them. I've counted them. You're not going anywhere too far right now.
without driving.
Yeah, without driving, and you can't drive there. But when the time gets right for that part of the world and for you and your family, I highly recommend it. It's a fantastic experience on any number of levels.
As a Christian human male. Okay, and now I'm really trying to become an Orthodox Christian. I mean, I have to be accepted and all that stuff, but this is where my faith is led, is to Orthodox Christianity. Okay,
good for you.
Thank you. I definitely want to go to Jerusalem. I mean, that's where I would like to go. You know, and I'm probably going to go worship and be spit at, which is kind of crazy.
It will bring you quite literally to your knees.
Right, and I understand.
It's a very
that.
moving experience,
and I would love to go for that reason.
Yeah.
But I know that worshiping, you know, Jesus in the way that I do is frowned upon in Israel, which kind of pisses me off. Okay. I just want to put that out there.
You'll be fine. You'll be
Okay.
fine. I promise.
And
I know firsthand you'll be fine.
so anyways, it's back to the point. It is absolutely insane to think about the amount of mental damage that the last 4 years has done to an entire generation of people. I used to say it would take one generation to fix this. I don't think that's the truth anymore.
I don't think we've come to terms with the amount of damage that's been done. I really don't. I think we're seeing it in the schools, obviously.
We are in a
kids,
mental
but
health equivalent of the Black Plague.
Well,
Yeah, that may be well
Yikes.
said. I think it also needs to be said
Approximately-
that there is a mental health aspect to the woke turn of our culture.
yeah.
And I know that we want to keep this political and not too
Oh, we talk
cultural.
culture a lot.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, thanks
yeah.
thanks for giving me a little
Please
attitude
do.
here then. But I think it needs to be said that there is a mental health aspect that is not working in our favor, that is detrimental to our young person's long-term emotional well-being. When you convince an entire generation that they, A, are victims, right?
Absolutely.
And B, therefore we need to do something about that. Like your victimhood needs to be celebrated and we need to protect you.
Yeah.
That is not good for you.
Well, do you know where I think a lot of that overprotectiveness really started? Because Jonathan Haidt goes over it in the Coddling of the Mind.
Yes, he does.
Yes, for 2013, which is the year I entered college.
Mhm.
The college landscape shifted dramatically. Basically, my age and under was dramatically sheltered. Well, there was a significant event that happened when I was about 6 years old, where
Oh, God.
people no longer felt that they were safe in the United States, and that was
Yes.
9/11.
Oh.
Right.
And they
Right.
Holy shit! You were only 6 when that happened.
I was only 6 years
Holy
old.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sometimes I
was
forget
only
how
6
I
years
forget how
old.
young you are sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and I'm
it's
sure
amazing.
Mike's going. Holy shit!
Well, shit.
Wow.
I mean, we were all young. I was only 40.
Yeah.
Oh,
There you
only
go.
40.
I'm younger than your kids.
Yes, you are, by the way.
I had
Yeah.
I had not yet graduated high school, but I was
had
very
wow.
graduated
close.
Yeah.
first grade.
I was very close to finishing high
Yeah.
school. But, you know,
Yeah. My kids were 7 and 9.
yeah. I was 17, and
Yeah.
I was like, I'm not gonna let these people kill my family and friends, and so I went to war, and then, like I said, Iraq. What the fuck are we doing in Iraq? This doesn't make any sense to me at all.
But, to be fair, you were, 17, 18 years old. That is not an inappropriate instinct
Right.
Mhm.
for a human male to have when you feel like your community is under attack. It is not your obligation as a 17 or 18. It's too high an expectation for you to understand where the true threat is coming from. And, what should do about that policy-wise. This is just another reason why the actions taken by your government is a real ethical problem. It's not just a matter of killing 1 million Iraqis, by the way, and put a pin in that, because that is not a throwaway line, right?
Hey,
That is,
listen,
yeah.
Madeleine Albright said it was all worth it. So
fuck her.
yes, yes, that's what I'm talking about, Mike. That's what I
Sorry.
wanted to hear.
Sorry.
No, don't
Uh,
apologize.
Do not
Yeah.
apologize. to
Don't
us
apologize for
We
that,
love
sir.
that.
But it
That's what we
also
want.
needs to be said that,
Mhm.
just because we only lost like 9,000 guys in that war, right? And I apologize for not knowing the numbers. Shame on me. But that gets swept under the rug like it's some small number. Like that's not a huge emotional impact on an entire generation. That is really profound, important stuff.
That's that's bigger than my entire hometown.
That's right.
Losing one person in my hometown is a huge impact.
Yeah, how much? What was the population of the town you grew up in?
6,000.
Yeah, that's tiny.
we
Tiny shit.
about 3 years ago we lost a man named Jim Smith, who was a state trooper, one of the greatest men I've ever met. Our little town of 6,000. We had over 6,000 people show up to his funeral.
Mhm.
The whole town? Was it the whole town?
The whole town?
People from all
Effectively.
over the state showed up because he had just an exemplary.
Yeah, I'll tell you, the school shooting that just happened in Perry, Iowa, is going to be the biggest thing that's ever happened and will ever happen to Perry, Iowa. There's no doubt. There's a
Let's
lot
hope
of
it never
small-
happens again.
Yeah, let's
Yep.
hope it never happens
Absolutely.
again. And let's address the familia situation and the radicalization of the trans activists in America by the news media. I mean, really, there's so many issues. Like the crux of the issue is there's so many different things that got into this person's head that made them think that school was their enemy.
Yeah,
right?
it was a case of mental illness, just like most of these are, right? And it happens, and then after it happens, we find all the clues that were already there, that everyone just ignored, or they were distracted and didn't see, or whatever.
Well, this person
And-
had been reported to the authorities.
Of course. Always have.
Yeah,
They always are.
always.
All of their posts had already been archived because there were people that suspicious that something like this might happen.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that's how, like, within 3 hours of it happening, all of their social media posts, which a lot of them had been deleted,
But
were
they still had
available
them
to the
archived.
public.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's so crazy. It's so crazy to me because like every time there's one of these shooters, one of these mass shooters, they were known by local and national sometimes authorities. I mean, FBI, and even there was one that had worked. Was it James Holmes from Colorado had worked directly with the CIA on some things in college, and I mean,
Yikes.
yeah,
That's creepy.
it's creepy.
That's creepy.
Yeah.
The college guy, the one that went into the house at night.
No,
Or which one?
the guy that shot up the Aurora, Colorado.
Oh,
Although
yeah,
that's
yeah.
creepy
Yeah.
too. You brought up another creepy story.
Yeah, that's a very creepy
That's
one.
creepy.
Oh, the guy that drove all the way across the country and
Yeah.
stabbed that
The
in Idaho.
criminology
He was a
student in
criminology
Idaho.
student.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then of course the first headline was libertarian.
Yeah.
Oy.
I remember that. We talked about it on the
Yeah,
show.
we talked about it on the show because
Yeah.
it's like when else do they bring up the political affiliation of a murderer, dude? When?
Right.
When?
Like
But
a
then-
Democrat went and shot up
Yeah.
some grocery store.
Yeah, like Democrat. Okay, well, every shooting in Chicago has been done by a Democrat. Okay, but here's the thing: it's like that was the headline news. Registered libertarians found or charged with murdering these kids.
Well,
in
it
this
gives
house.
us the opportunity to say there are several libertarians that we know who haven't shot up grocery stores.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's important.
Well, they
There
did
are
this.
dozens of us.
They did the same thing. There was this guy in Virginia, right, that ran as for Congress as a libertarian. Nathan, I'm not going to remember his last name. You might know this story being in Virginia. There's a lot of people that do in Virginia, but he was like a devout, out and out pedophile, and talked about how women were just slaves and all this stuff, just crazy shit. And he was an actual KKK guy and all this stuff.
Yikes.
And he had been the Libertarian Party of Virginia actually removed him from their membership. He was a lifetime member of the National Party. And in 2018, my good friend Joe, from the floor of the National Convention, called to revoke his lifetime membership, and Nick Sarwark fought against it.
Wow.
Membership,
Of course.
very famously. I mean, it's on video and all this shit,
Yeah.
right? And so he ends up kidnapping a little girl and going across the country. He died in prison. Shucks. Anyways. So, but every headline about this guy when that stuff started happening, when he kidnapped the girl, libertarian congressional candidate, it's like, dude, the party removed him from their state party.
Right.
Okay. They literally were like, no, fuck you. And you're still running this headline. It's the only time they ever use your political affiliation as a headline in the news is when it's a weird fringe third party, right?
Well, it's interesting. I was at one of my first Virginia conventions a couple years back when the one before we had to reconstitute ourselves.
Oh, sure.
Speaking of weird stories. And there was a little bit of a discussion about this point about removing someone. And I'm like, having just moved from out of the state, I'm like, well, what's the big deal? Like, why are we talking about this? This is never going to happen. This is never going to come up. Like, why are you people so worried about this?
It's come up.
Yeah, and someone had to pull me aside and say, first of all, shut the fuck up, right? So let me help you stop embarrassing yourself.
Yeah, physically removed for sure. And my friend Tyler Broughton from California is in the chat, and he keeps saying, this is a great conversation, but I'm interested to see where you guys disagree. Let's have a friendly debate. Whip it out and see who is more anarchist. I think at the end of the day, I would be more anarchist than you. I believe that. But that's just because
I suspect that's
I
suspect that's true.
I'm for
don't
the
know that
full
for sure.
abolition of all government. I mean,
Well, that's okay. That's definitionally.
Yeah, I know that's where I go.
You can't go any further than that.
Larry, who's been a mentor to me, Larry Sharp has been an absolute mentor to me.
Yes.
When I first came in 2017 and started running for chairman, Larry really took me under his wing and said, okay, let me teach you a little bit about politics because you're a little rough around the edges. And I'm still a little rough around the edges. I think that's part of my
Sure.
lore. I do.
And in fairness, most of the world is rough compared to Larry. Larry's very smooth.
Yeah,
he's,
very
he's a
smooth.
very sophisticated
Yeah.
guy. Yeah.
And he's the one who taught me, when you're giving a speech, always have three things so that you can come back to the three things. And he really helped me out. I mean, more than Toastmasters, more than anything else, he helped me out a lot. But Larry always tells me, because Larry's not an anarchist per se, but he will tell you that anarchy is our North Star. That's the libertarian North Star. That's the direction we should be heading in. Even if you don't agree that full anarchy, that's the place we should be heading. And I agree with them. I
agree. I think that is the North Star. I think that where sometimes I differ is a matter of semantics. So let me try this out, because I don't disagree with anything that you just said. I do think that people have a right, individuals, they have a right to come together and make decisions together regarding whether it's to hold an asset, right? Or make rules about property. Homeowners, for example, as much as I hate homeowners associations, anyone who says anything nice about a homeowners association, we're going to have to fight in the hallway, right? But as much as we hate that, it's not up to us to say you're not allowed to have a homeowners association, right?
Right.
I mean, I would not want one.
Have you read Hoppe? Have
Yeah.
you read any? So I mean, we're talking essentially covenant communities, which isn't anti-anarchist per se. So
You said is not anti-anarchist.
it's not anti-anarchist. Yeah, I mean to say we want covenant communities where we have a small tight knit community and we say what goes on in our community is
Right.
not really. I mean, you can call it collectivist and that's fine, but it's
Right.
as long as it's the absence of some giant centralized apparatus
Okay, but
nationwide, right?
And this is my point: is it may be only a matter of semantics, but whenever you have a group of people, even two people, I suppose definitionally, as granular as possible, but anytime you have a group of people come together and they have to make a decision about something that affects all of them, that is definitionally something that we would call public, right? I mean, there is politics involved. There is a group that has to make a decision. And people have a right to pursue that. We all believe that those decisions need to be made as local level as possible, as
Right.
granular as possible. And so I don't think there's any disagreement there. And, do groups have a right to come together and create these structures? They do. I just think that one of the things that we need to teach people is that while you may have the right to come together and make collectivist decisions, it's a really bad idea.
Right. Yeah, that's good. I don't think Mike and I disagree on a whole lot. I mean, I know that the Federal Reserve being the blight on humanity that it is very important to Mike, just like I do. I mean, it's one of the most important things we can talk about. I think we got him on camera saying that he would commit to helping the nuclear family and not the destruction of it subsidized by the federal government. I mean, there's not a lot that we disagree on. There really isn't. And I've found that through several debates now. And I think, I think the only time we've ever gotten up in arms, and then I did say the one thing that I falter from you on is that I don't think most people have a libertarian streak.
And this may be a matter of semantics too.
Yeah.
Let me pursue that and give you a chance to agree with me if you should choose to do so. Nobody is an exaggeration. 98% of America would not call it a libertarian streak, right? Most people don't know how to spell libertarianism. They don't know there's a libertarian
Ryan certainly
party.
doesn't. Anyway,
That's true.
Well, most
I
people.
just don't know how to spell lectern. I can spell lectern.
fucked up the word lectern, dude, of all the words. Anyways,
I don't think most people could spell liberty, much less libertarian, much less know there's a libertarian party. And those people who do know that there's a libertarian party probably don't have much good to say about it because they have a complete misperception. One of the things that I learned running for local office a couple years ago is that the value of the libertarian brand is really close to zero. And it's my sister who often tells me, no. It's negative.
right.
In a lot of places in the United States, you can get more votes running as an independent than running as a libertarian because people have a negative perception of it. That's a really weird thing. My point is that people, I think, most people, and I don't have data on this, right?
Right.
But
Hey, we pull stats out of our asses on the show
we
all
pull
the
numbers,
time, buddy.
right, exactly. So let me pursue that. I think most people in the United States like the idea of limited government as a construct. They just love it when the government helps them, right?
That's it.
It's not so much a philosophy; it's a selfishness. And that's a little bit of a different animal. I think most people like the idea of a pluralistic democracy. I think people like the idea that the government does not shove things down your throat. I think people naturally like that. I think that people naturally repel against people bossing you around, for example. I think that a lot of libertarian philosophy naturally appeals to people,
Right.
but they don't identify it that way. But I think that if you were to tell people, our government has gone off the rails regarding military interventionism, I think a lot of people would say, you're damned right. I think you're damned right. And then you'd say, well, that's what libertarianism is. And they'd say, what? What the hell are you talking about? Let's go back and talk about something I understand, and that is that war sucks.
I want to talk about. I want to go back to the Gary Johnson thing. I know you're done with that. But
I do kind of want to disagree with you
fuck, here we
on
go.
one thing there. So you said people don't.
You're going to call me Josh's throw pillow?
Show's about to get real gay.
No.
Come on, Nick. Show's about to get real gay, buddy.
You said most people don't want the government bossing them around, and I think that's right, but I don't think they want there to not be a government to boss people around.
Yeah, I think you're probably
they
right.
Just want to be the ones bossing people around. I think that's the
Yeah,
majority of
you may
people.
be quite right about that. And again, we don't have data on that, right? I think you may be right about that. And that's why I limit it to a libertarian streak. I don't say most people are libertarians, but I think that most people have an element in them. You might have to look hard to find it, but I think most people have something in them that we can appeal to.
Here we go. You done?
I think the
No,
flip
he's not wrong. He's not wrong.
I think the flip side of that, and this is the minority vote axe throwing at you, is I learned during COVID lockdowns that there's about 30% of us that would rat us out.
Yeah. There's
They're
a bunch of
susceptible to
people that-
authoritarianism, and they may not like it, but they have become used to it.
So Michael Malice makes a great point on this, that there are a bunch of low status people that can only compete on how subservient they are.
Always low.
Yeah.
Well, and I think we've talked about this on the show too a lot. Is that the COVID thing gave probably 100, maybe millions of people an identity that didn't have an identity.
Yeah.
And so that's probably one of the biggest issues, is that this is their whole identity now.
And
right.
victimhood generally.
Yes. Yeah. Victimhood in general gives people that are low status and don't have identity. It gives them an identity.
They have a stick now.
They're like, well, now I'm part of the in group. Yeah. I'm part of this in group, and this is my group, and I'm going to defend them to the death, even if they're all pedophiles that are running our government, right? And that's true. You're right here in time, right now in history, paying taxes to pedophiles. How's that feel? I hate it. I fucking hate it.
And the other thing it does, it allows them to be horrible people on the premise that they believe that they're being good people by being.
There you go.
That is well said.
There you go.
That's from
Yeah.
Aldous Huxley, who calls it the most delicious moral treat.
Yeah, bringing up heathens on the show.
Now that you said that, let me try another line on you that I have never uttered, but I'm interested in your feedback on it. Might it also be true? Maybe you don't agree with me that most Americans have a libertarian streak, but you at least get my point. Might it also be true that most Americans have an authoritarian streak?
Yes.
Is it possible that most Americans have a little bit of each? And there's a knife's edge there, that most people could go either way. And that part of your job, part of my job, part of his job, is to save people from themselves.
I don't know if I agree with you, just because history would show that the vast majority of societies have been authoritarian. And that has always been the dominant trait.
Yeah.
So I would say people far more often lean authoritarian, because almost every society in history has been one that's authoritarian.
And every
Wow.
government,
There's been 300 years of Scotland where it was pretty libertarian.
Yep.
And then 100 years of America, maybe. And that's
way less than 100 years.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, we went off the rails. True, if you counted it by societies, right? There are very, very few societies that you would not call authoritarian, depending on where you drew the line. But in terms of the percentage of population, it doesn't take a great deal of a percentage of a population to become authoritarian. You know, the ruling class, the authoritarian class, the political class that rules our nation does not represent more than 50% of the population. Now, it may be 50% of the population that loves it, which is your point, right? That's an exaggeration. I didn't mean to put all that on you, but it may be that a lot of people support that, but it doesn't take a large number of people to come up with a government that really sucks. And I think that that's part of the problem, right? Is you could have 50% of the population supports it and 5% of it loves it and executes on it, and you've got an authoritarian society.
Mike.
Yep.
Just to interject here for a second, why is it that every government turns into a bunch of satanic pedophiles, and what will you do when the Nephilims return?
When they return?
Yeah, when the Nephilims return, well, they're here now. But
They're here now.
here.
I was going to say.
What are you going to do when you're face to face with the Nephilims, Mike?
I think. Well, first of all, I hope you'll be by my side.
You know it.
But I think you got to go violent.
Yeah, very violent. Yeah.
I think you got to go violent. You can't hold back there.
Yeah, when the holy water doesn't work, the violence starts for sure.
There are plenty of circumstances in which violence is the ethical choice.
Yes, I agree, and that's Chase brought that up in the debate that we had a debate earlier for the Iowa caucus for the Libertarian Party.
Yep.
Myself, Chase, Oliver, Lars. Mapstead, and of course Mike Tremont. And Chase brought this up, and he actually said, violence is never the answer. That's what he said.
It's not true.
And it's just.
I mean, it is true. He said that, but it's not true that it's never the answer.
Yeah, it's
correct.
It's very frequently actually the answer when you're being aggressed upon. It's like the one way to reason with violent people is through violence. Unfortunately, it's unfortunate that that's the way it is. And maybe when we go to heaven, we'll learn a society that has no a world that has no violence, and that's the ultimate faith, right?
Or maybe heaven is where I finally get to punch that guy in the face.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
maybe,
I don't know.
right. Yeah, dude, I've been
wait
wanting
and
to
see
catch
how
you
that
for a
plays
long
out. It's not for
time,
me to
right?
say.
Yeah.
Not for me to say.
but yeah, I just the Nephilims. We actually had Nephilim trending 2 weeks ago on Twitter. If you're not familiar, look up Nephilim giants and.
Yeah,
but
I've gone on my autistic rant about Nephilim.
yeah, we had homeboy from the Lore Lodge on and talked about Nephilims, and of course the top is way out there about
wow, I'm
Nephilims now.
impressed.
Yeah, and we actually we had Nephilim trending. It was #1 trending on Twitter when the Miami stuff happened recently, where there was
we thought that was Nephilims, but we know what that really was, guys, right?
Yeah,
that's interesting. Well, to your point, one of the things that I worry about is let me back up to an observation about bullying. One of the things that we have learned about bullying over the years, and I've had some exposure to this, unfortunately, but one of the things that we know about bullies is they really only respond to force.
Right.
That doesn't necessarily mean violence, but you can't give too many inches to bullies. They'll take feet and yards, right? And we know this, whether it's at an individual level, whether it's a societal level, or whether it's a government. You get my point. One of the things I worry about is that at some point, you could imagine a scenario in which we don't know what to do about our government anymore. And I think that we're reaching that sooner rather than later, if you know what I mean.
Oh,
yeah.
I would
Yes.
agree with that.
Yeah, we do.
We're the most powerful empire in the history of the world, and it's not remotely close.
We
would be able to fight every other empire
And
in
agreed.
the world and destroy them all.
I agree 100%. And my point is that it's actually getting worse rather than better. And the options for slowing it down, much less stopping it, much less reversing it, are becoming more and more attenuated from even our imagination, much less our capabilities. And I worry that in the next, I would say, decade or two, right? And maybe that sounds a little optimistic, that we have that long before there is some sense of revolution in the United States that is not political, right? That is relatively chaotic, relatively violent, that is met with increased oppression, martial law, for example, from the federal government or state governments in the United States, for that matter, especially if you're in California. And I worry that leads to a downward spiral, a real death cycle for society in the United States.
AJ's getting a chubby right now for sure.
Yeah, man. It's gonna get worse before it gets worse.
Yeah.
And we all have children in this room. We don't want a civil war, and I think
don't
that's
have children in this room.
That's what the. Oh, okay. Well,
yeah.
Mike's gonna be on the front lines.
I mean, Ryan is our child, so
all right.
we do
Mike will
have
run point.
children in the room.
But I think there's a narrative on the political left that says the right is trying to foment civil war and that we want to accelerate it, and they're not seeing that clearly. We don't want that, but not being prepared to do that puts us in exactly the same boat.
Right.
Not being able to fight, if you can tell the American government, hey man, I'm not going to follow your rules, but you have nothing to back it up, that doesn't mean anything.
The scariest people on earth are the people that are capable of extreme violence, but are not committing extreme violence. They're the scariest people in the world. We've had this conversation. We actually have a really good clip from the show where we had the come to Jesus talk with Ryan about this exact situation where I was like, when is enough enough?
Yeah.
And he's like, well, I guess we're past that point. And I'm like, yeah, we're past that point.
Yeah.
We're past that point. It's just not reasonable to be able to fight back
Sure
because it's the most powerful
Sure
empire in the history of the world.
It is absolutely reasonable. And I've talked about it a lot on the show as well, that fighting back does not necessarily mean that we have to commit violence against the government.
This is correct.
It's fighting back is Bitcoin. Fighting back is printing your own weapons. Fighting back is taking your family and opting them out of the federal government system as much as possible. Because
raising kids with values.
Raising kids with values.
Values.
Strong family. Strong faith is something that's
with
very
values
too.
And without schools.
Yeah.
Raising kids with strong values that lead to them having kids.
Yes.
That's going to be the dominant culture 50 to 100 years from now.
Every child that you are able to instill with a good sense of individualism and self-reliance is one kid in this country that will no longer rely on the government and will see that they're unneeded. And so that's the Civil War. I talk about this all the time. Mm-hmm. That's the Civil War. It's making humans that don't need the federal government anymore, and don't, for all intents and purposes, also don't need the state government, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, like that's the Civil War. It doesn't have to be violence. It always comes back to this conversation of violence and like, oh, you can't take out the federal government with your AK-47s. And like, first of all, laughs in Vietnamese rice farmer, right? Or Afghan goat herder, right? But seriously, the truth of the matter is that we don't have to fight. We just have to opt out, man. And that's what that's what my campaign is really about, is like just nullify the whole thing through these avenues, right? Because, at the end of the day, I'm probably one of the only libertarian candidates that says like, probably not going to win the presidency, guys. I want you to know that, but we do have this platform to use and we should use it. And we should have somebody who's going to use it the right way. And, going back, I keep wanting to go back to this. First of all, we got a $2 super chat from my 69,420th kid. Mike, are you pro at hunting Windussi?
Are you pro hunting Windussi?
Oh, pro hunting Windussi. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I am pro you having the right to do so.
You know what Windussi is?
I know that you know what Windussi is.
Wendigo pussy, dude. Come on.
And that's all that I need to know.
Yeah.
I do not need to know that you're confident in my understanding of Windussi. I just need to be confident in your understanding.
Okay, so that was a fun little break, but back to the Gary Johnson thing, and I really do want to get into this because it's important to me. It's important to me because it's a defense of Mike Tremont.
Okay, I appreciate that.
All right, so Gary Johnson. So I was around for Gary Johnson's campaign, right? It was like 2016, not the 2012 campaign. I didn't know much about Gary Johnson, but I did watch him in 2012.
Yeah.
In 2016, I signed up for the Libertarian Party. Well, in 2015, I signed up for the Libertarian Party, and I campaigned for Gary Johnson and Bill Weld, who I absolutely hate. I didn't know that much about Bill Weld back then.
Yeah.
Okay? And this is why I actually don't like the comparison of Gary Johnson to Mike Tremont. First of all, Gary Johnson's 2012 campaign, night and day compared to his 2016 campaign. He was smart. He was intelligent. He wasn't high at every campaign stop in 2012. He actually looked well in the media. He spoke well.
2016 was a poor man's version of 2012.
And there's a reason. There's a reason for this. And not a lot of people have listened to this, but Tom Woods put out an episode with Judd Weiss. It's called The Weiss Report. There's actually a title on there. It's several years ago now. Judd Weiss was running as McAfee's vice president. They were trying to get, and they were very close to getting the nomination at one point. So was Austin Peterson. There was a point where all three of those
remember.
Yeah. So Gary Johnson got the nomination, ran for president in 2016 to pay Ron Nielsen a sum of $1 million for helping him start a business. Gary Johnson was very, very high throughout the entire campaign. And I don't just mean like he was smoking a little pot. He looked like Towley from South Park at every campaign stop. There's actually a video of Gary Johnson showing up to endorse Larry Sharpe for governor in New York, and he's like, "This is Larry Sharpe, and you should vote for him for governor." And I'm like, "That's Towley from South Park." I mean,
Are you implying it was something more than cannabis?
So, well, no, he was high. He was
okay.
More than a little.
Okay.
More than a little.
Okay, just a massive, copious amounts of cannabis.
Copious amounts of cannabis, and it was because
Fair enough.
he was not a serious candidate. He was only running to raise money to pay his campaign manager $1 million, and that's been proven by Judd Weiss, who put out this whole report on this stuff. Right?
Gotcha.
I've watched Maat at several campaign events. I've watched how he speaks. He's intelligent. He knows the stuff that he's talking about.
And significantly less cannabis.
Significantly less stoned at campaign events. In fact, he turned down a beer or a glass of wine even here at my house. And so I've watched him. He's intelligent. He knows what he's talking about. He knows a lot about how the federal government works. He's worked around those types before. That comparison to Gary Johnson, maybe you kind of look a little bit like him.
Well,
I think that's what
I'll have to
That was what I
defer
said.
to your opinion on that. I don't really know. But it is important because I know that you agree with this wholeheartedly. If your campaign shtick is, I'm socially liberal like a Democrat and fiscally conservative like a Republican.
Gay.
First
That just
of all,
means gay.
you have failed marketing 101. You know, you have just given people absolutely no reason to support you. You've given people two reasons to dislike you, right? You could dislike one half or dislike the other. And the other thing that needs to be pointed out, and he should have known this, is he was lying to people.
Sure.
You know, by 2016, Democrats were in no serious fashion socially liberal anymore, and fiscal conservative Republicans in 2016 they were already gone.
Yeah, had long gone.
Yeah, they had long gone. So he's saying something that doesn't hold any water and that fails to differentiate. You know, my big thing, what I spend probably too much time talking about, is that I believe that we need to completely differentiate from the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. You can leave no doubt that we are a completely separate choice.
Yep. I agree with you. And I've been saying that since I started running for chair in 2018. I said, how can we be a successful third party if we're just the diet version of one of the two other parties? Why
Correct.
would you join a party that is a diet version of a successful party? Why? Nobody wants to join that. You have to set yourself so far apart that people are like, hey, this party is not like the other two parties, and they stand for principles, and that's important. And it was like, this was my big fight with Nick Sarwark in 2018 when I ran against Nick Sarwark in 2018 as just a regular blue-collar guy that nobody knew, and I took 11.5% of the vote from a three-term incumbent trial lawyer who had been a DA, or not a DA, a public pretender. Defender, yeah, but I say pretender when it comes to Nick Sarwark.
We gotcha. I
really don't like Nick Sarwark. I could do a whole show on Nick Sarwark right now.
And we have.
Yeah, we have. Yeah, but so that was my big gripe with Sarwark is he's like, he's a big Bill Weld guy, and he wanted Bill Weld to run for president in 2020, and he didn't want to stand apart. He wanted us to maybe we can cut a little bit of Social Security. Maybe we can cut a little bit of taxes, and we can do the flat tax or the fair tax and this and that. It's like, dude, nobody cares. Nobody is listening to you going, bing, light bulb. That's what we need. Nobody, zero people. And he's like, well, we grew the party more than anybody, and we got the most votes. How many of those votes translated into new party members? Very little. And Gary Johnson was running against two of largely the most unliked presidential candidates
At
in
the
my
time.
lifetime.
Yeah.
At the time.
Correct.
Now it's team sport, right? But back then it was like Trump and Hillary. People were like, "Oh God, Hillary," and the other half was like, "That's Trump." Oh my God, I've been watching him on Lifestyles Rich. and
That was
Famous.
a missed
He's-
opportunity.
Yeah, it was a
Yeah.
huge missed
We
opportunity.
have a decent candidate that year, and
We had a
the
couple of them.
opportunity was to get up to 10% easily.
We had a couple of really good candidates. We had McAfee, who
Yep.
was absolutely insane, but at the same time was
R.I.P. question mark?
Yeah, a question mark, exactly.
All
Set way far apart from any of the old parties. We had Austin Peterson, who was very good on a lot of issues and a great speaker, and I don't agree with him on
Austin's
stuff.
smart.
Yeah, Austin's very smart.
Austin's a very smart guy.
Austin's been a good friend of mine for a long time, and I know that he's at odds with libertarians right now over his comments about Israel and stuff like that, and I disagree with him. Big time disagree with him. I think he's wrong. We've disagreed on World War II and Hiroshima and all kinds of things about war. Okay, but man, is he a great speaker, and he built the troll ninjas, the Austin Peterson Freedom Ninja Army. I mean, he really, if he had brought more delegates to that, I think he would have got more votes than Gary Johnson did. I believe that. I do believe that about Austin Peterson.
He's a good guy. Regarding McAfee, I think one of the things that needs to be said is that Gary Johnson won because he brought a lot of credibility.
They also had a lot of money, and they bust in delegates.
Yeah.
Him and Bill
And
Weld.
that's weird.
Yeah.
That's weird. I have a little bit of a problem with that. That's a weird thing. Remember that Gary did get up to double digits in a couple of polls.
Oh, sure, yeah.
At one point,
Yeah.
and that was really interesting. And it shows what a missed opportunity it was, because here's a guy that did have a lot of credibility, right? He had been around the block. I mean,
Two-term governor.
and a two-term governor. Come on. If his messaging hadn't sucked, right? Think about the possibility. First of all, his campaign wouldn't have imploded, my argument, when he said if his messaging hadn't sucked, he would have hung on to a lot of those people, and they would have, to Josh's point, they would have become members of the Libertarian Party, I believe.
Yeah, they would have stuck around, and there were a lot. He actually grew the party by like a third or something like that, right? And those people stuck around till the Meatcocks came in, and they're all gone now, all of them. I mean, Andy Craig and all those guys, Nick Sarwark even at one point. I mean, all these guys left the party.
Yeah.
But like they all were so socially, not even just socially left. They were just like, you're watching them now actually like stump for democratic policies right now. And it's like, this was the whole problem to begin with. It's like you guys fought us, telling us you're the real libertarians and we're all the right-wing authoritarians.
Yeah, that chicken went home to roost.
Yeah,
went
and then
far away from here to roost.
yeah, and then 5 minutes after you leave the party, you're sitting there advocating for the same policies that we told you were advocating for before openly. You know what I mean? It's just absolutely insane to me. Oh, this is a good one. Dave versus Goliath. Dave Casey gave us a $5 super chat. That's very cool, he did. Oh, well, the Libertarian Extremist gave us a $2 one. Said, I can make bread from pine trees. Bring it, feds. He's an Appalachian guy. Those guys are a different.
I love him.
Yeah, they're a different breed. That's why I tell people when the shit hits the fan, I'm taking my family and bugging out to Appalachia stand for sure.
By the way, is that just a metaphorical throwaway line? I really want to know how to do that.
Yeah, so do I. Hey, listen, I think he's in Virginia or West Virginia. I mean, you probably
Hey,
hook
come
up
on
with him.
by.
Yeah,
We'll do pancakes.
Dave says a question for both candidates: who better represents your values, Chase Oliver or Vivek Ramaswamy?
Hold on.
Wowzers.
First of all, I got to figure out a way to get both those guys in my brain at the same time in a way that I'll be able to extract them soon. I have to be honest. I'm going to go with Chase. And the reason I say that is, number one, I've gotten to know Chase a little bit. And however you may feel about Chase on any other level, I think that Chase is telling the truth about his libertarianism, to be fair. Not so Vivek Ramaswamy. I really do believe that Vivek is putting together, he's cobbling together pieces of philosophy here and philosophy there to make himself palatable to Trumpers and differentiate himself from everybody else in that party. I don't believe that he is truly a libertarian at heart. I think that he would go to war over anything that would get him into the White House.
Sure. And so I have a similar answer, but not so much. So here's the thing. I believe, like you, I believe that Chase is 100% honest. I know Chase personally. I've known Chase personally for many, many years. I've had dinner with Chase. I've hung out with Chase. We've been to events together. I believe him wholeheartedly when he tells me he wants to do these things. I
Yep.
do. I also don't believe that Vivek Ramaswamy
Yeah.
believes these things.
Yep.
I don't. I think there's a lot that he's just saying because he's essentially the rights Obama, in my opinion. That's what he is.
The rights Obama.
he's
I got to
the-
let that one sink in.
Yeah, he's the Republican Obama. He's the hope and change.
Did that just
guy.
spin your neck around?
A little bit.
Yeah,
Thinking
a
about
little
that
bit.
one.
He's the Republican Obama, and I do believe that. But I'll tell you this.
But not one who's going to win, though.
Yeah, the things. So Chase's anti-war stance is dead on. I love it to death, dude. I 100% agree with him wholeheartedly on his anti-war stuff. I believe that he means it. I believe that he left the left because of their war stances. And I appreciate that about Chase. I really do. And the more he can talk about it publicly, the better.
Yeah, agreed.
There's a lot of things that I fundamentally disagree with Chase on. His shoulder shrug and hand wave of the trans kids stuff, never fully answering those questions when brought up, that kind of stuff where, it needs to be left up to the family. I disagree. I think that doctors who perform that kind of stuff on children and push children to have these life-altering transitions should be held accountable in the same way that we would hold anybody else who's grooming and trafficking children accountable. So that's a fundamental difference that makes it very hard for me to even say I would vote for Chase.
So
Hold on, I'm not done. This is a question for me first.
Wait,
of all. Not
Ryan.
for you. You're not a candidate. Okay, let me finish my debate here. Okay, if the stuff that Vivek is saying is true, minus the war with Mexico stuff, okay, the stuff about the secretarial
That's
stuff.
that's a big one. That's a
Yes,
big one
it's
for
a
me.
very big
That's a
one.
big one for me.
Yes. Then yes, I would say that his views represent my views more because he is so big on getting rid of all of these bureaucratic institutions that harm every community around the country. But I don't believe him. I don't believe him.
You know why?
Don't.
One of the reasons I don't believe him, besides just watching him, one of the reasons I don't believe him is because he likes to claim he's an America firster, right?
Yep.
And make no mistake, in Republican circles, that means he's not a free trader.
Oh.
He's not fundamentally a pro-market guy.
I have a question for you, Mike. There's a poster on the wall over there, right? To your
Am I
right.
allowed to look at it?
Yeah, of course. Who's your favorite on the list there?
I gotta go with Carl.
That's a good one. That's a good one. That's
Yeah.
that's one that
Now, he goes way back.
yeah, way back.
Right. He
Yeah.
goes way,
Yeah.
way back. One of the things I like about Menger is he came up with some fundamental stuff about how markets work, fundamental stuff about how he saw supply and really basic concepts of making decisions on the margin, how supply and demand works and how it's aggregated, stuff like this that clearly laid the foundation for economic thought
Sure.
forever after that. It was really a turning point. And
And he doesn't get the credit he deserves when it comes to especially the Austrians, because it's all about Mises and it's all about Rothbard and it's all about Henry Hazlitt and it's all about F.A. Hayek. Even they talk a lot about who is not my favorite, but Menger is.
I'm a Hayek guy because one of the things that I like about any school of thought is the idea that you last, that you have an impact, that your students
Staying power,
that your students are influential. And I think that Hayek's influence on, for example, Milton Friedman and the rest of the University of Chicago mattered.
Sure.
Mattered. And I respect that. It's one of the reasons why I'm a big Milton Friedman fan, is because you look at that guy's students, most especially my favorite, the most important economist in the world, Thomas Sowell, a student of Milton Friedman. That says a lot about Friedman.
Would you say Sol is a Chicago economics guy, full bore?
Yeah.
Because I know he sometimes he strikes me as a little Austrian, but he kind of goes back and forth.
I don't know that you need to draw such a big line between those two.
Sure.
Because Chicago is really a descendant of Austrian. And that's one of the reasons why I think the Austrian so brilliant, is that staying power, really laying the foundation for everything that we understand today that really does work about libertarianism. And I do believe that once the Fed is ended, and I don't know exactly what that end looks like. I don't know if it's ripping it out root and branch the way you and I want to.
Yes.
Or if it means, we have to wait 24 years as it peters out. That would be a shame, but I could imagine that happening. But someday, one way or another, central banking will be very, very different than it is today.
Sure.
And I wonder whether the Austrians will get their due when that comes.
I sure hope so.
I sure hope so.
They deserve it. There's no doubt about it. I mean, when I'm talking economics, and I am not nearly as versed. I've read so much on economics, but nearly as versed in economics as you are. But it took me 3.5 reads to get through Human Action.
It's hard.
It's a hard
and it's
read.
old.
It's a fucking hard read.
It was written for a different day and age,
Yeah.
and we understand so much more about economics today than we did then.
Well, the first economics book I read was Wealth of Nations. And
Nice.
I was like, this is it. This is the shit, right? And then I got into the Austrians, and I'm like, oh, the Wealth of Nations sucks. I don't know. Right? With a fucking invisible hand, what the fuck is this guy talking about? No, it's a great book, and it really helped solidify my foundation. And of course, Henry Hazlitt's Economics in One Lesson changed my life. And and then the Libertarian Manifesto for a New Liberty really radicalized me to a point of no return. I mean, that was really the book, and it's still up there, and it's still one of the best books I've ever read. Even though there is stuff in the Libertarian Manifesto that I don't agree with. There is occasionally here and there, but
I read that a couple months ago.
It's
parts where I'm like, oh, you're a fucking idiot on this.
Rothbard was right about a lot, and I think that Hoppe has taken what Rothbard did and taken it to its extreme logical conclusion on a lot of things,
and that's the way it's supposed to
for
work,
that. Right? Yeah.
We're supposed to be advancing and honing and getting better. We're not supposed to be just solidifying everything that some previous guy said, right? That's not advancement. And so sometimes I fear holding these guys to too high a standard, just breaking ground. And Hayek, the stuff that he was saying, a lot of that was fresh.
Yeah.
The whole idea that government control over your life is both an efficiency problem and an ethical problem. It's easy for us to say that today. You go back 100 years ago, that stuff's like, bam.
Yeah.
Radical.
Well,
Radical.
It's I don't know. The great author, Dave Benner, who wrote The Life of Radicalism by the Thomas Paine biography, which I was doing the audiobook for.
How's that going, man?
He canceled it. It was taking me far too long to do it with the campaign and the baby. And so I feel bad, but he's still one of the greatest authors, I think, in my generation, Dave Benner. And reading through that book when I was doing the audiobook was insane to think about this time in history where this guy's writing these revolutionary pamphlets. Absolutely revolutionary. And being from England and over here in the colonies, going against England.
And by the way, the cojones.
The cojones it took.
Oh, my Lord.
That's what I'm saying.
Brass.
Absolute brass balls on this guy to do what he did. We could say all the things that Thomas Paine said back then right now, and no one gives a shit. Nobody cares.
Right.
I could go out and say everything that Thomas Paine said on the street corner with a megaphone, and people would just walk by and be like,
right.
Okay, cool, whatever, right? But at that time, when they're still under occupation by the crown, and there's this uprising of farmers and shit who are like, no, England, fuck you. It was a big deal. And it's the same way with a lot of these writers when they did these economics pamphlets and books. It was such a stunning thing at the time, and so it's nice to have people that are taking these things to the next conclusion and furthering the process of all that stuff. And someone brought up Bulwark in the chat too. Nobody wants to talk about him. He's on there. Pretty sure he's on there. And also great Austrian. Yeah. Also great Austrian. Yeah, he's over there.
Structure of
in the
production.
green square. He's just behind AJ's big head. So I think that anybody who's talking about Austrian economics would have to bring him up as well. So but yeah, anyways, Mike, we're getting towards the end of the thing here.
Oh my goodness.
I know it's been an hour and almost.
I've been
we're going on an hour.
patiently waiting for you to finish. So the thing I wanted to
Oh,
interject
Jesus.
is
Here we go.
if I could,
Here we go.
I could make that. So I
And I want to repeat an announcement I made in the debate that we had earlier too. So just to get a plug.
Yeah,
in.
no, we're going to talk about all kinds of stuff.
a quick plug. That
When I
might-
say we're
Yep.
getting to the end of this thing, it's
yeah,
it's
you
like
didn't say we're
halfway.
at the end.
We
You said
got
we're
about
getting
20
to
minutes or so. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, go ahead, Ryan.
so
We're all waiting on pins and needles for you, buddy.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So one thing that people like to do, and this goes back to one of your primary disagreements with Chase Oliver, is people like to outsource their thinking. And if the entire mental health system is corrupted, parents are going to outsource their thinking about what is best for their child to these activists posing as experts. And that's going to happen in all sorts of areas of life. And the government very much pushes for you to try and outsource your thinking to them, the people that they deem as experts. As
The only
Good point.
The only governments
Good
I
point.
recognize are the government of Julia. That's it.
Yeah.
That's all I care. Same with you for Nancy, I'm sure.
That's exactly right. Which is why I said that today. I really resent it when someone tries to boss me around other than my wife.
Right. It's true.
And to be fair, to be perfectly fair, Nancy doesn't. She's very sweet to me.
Yeah.
But if there's anyone to whom I'm going to turn for personal advice about what to do, about a medical decision, talk to your family and your spouse and your doctor. Find a doctor you can trust, right?
Right.
And make your decision that way. But to lean on the government, I mean, even saying it sounds weird, doesn't it? You don't have to be a libertarian to think that's weird, right?
I always thought it was funny, and I used to use this term back in 2018 and 2020 when I was running for chair. I used to use this term where people would be like, "Well, what about healthcare?" And I'd be like, "Go to any .org website right now. Anyone. I don't care what one it is. Go there, try to use the website, and then tell me those are the people you want in charge of your healthcare." Right?
Yeah.
Like any single website that they've paid millions of dollars to
Yep.
cultivate is horrendous. It's
So
the
true.
worst website.
So true.
The
Yeah.
worst. And you want those people in charge of your healthcare? I don't think so, dude. That's a terrible idea. Terrible. Conspiracy extremist. Thanks for $5 super chat. He said, after we defeat the Nephilim as president, what will you say do to encourage America to have a large families to grow our population? Latin on. Let's start with you, Mike.
What will we say to the population to
Yeah,
encourage them?
to have large families.
Yeah.
To grow. Our
well,
population.
first of all, I don't think it's appropriate for a public official to be telling you to expand your family. But I do think that there are things that you can say to effectively encourage that. In other words, we're going to stay out of your life. We're going to support you to be able to raise your children in the way that you see fit. We're not going to keep interrupting your First Amendment rights in a way that undermines your ability to pursue your faith in the way that you see fit. These are things that undermine families.
Sure.
They really do. They undermine family. You don't have to explicitly say, go raise a big family, to do things that would help people foster that environment in which it's a good idea to do so.
And I talk about that a lot
Agreed.
too. I think that, the subsidization of separating families, which right now the federal government.
It's one of the most disgusting things the government can do.
Through the federal government, we're entitled 40 of the Social Security Act. We're subsidizing the states. We're paying the states. I think I always mess up the exact amount, but it's like $1 for every 80 cents that they spend on these programs to separate families. 66 cents. That's what it is. Yep. You're right. So we pay the state governments $1 for every 66 cents they spend on any of these child welfare and family law programs. We're paying the states to separate families, but on top of that too, we subsidize abortion, right? We have a corporate news media that plays clips of like, we're married and childless people all the time and beat it into people's head that having kids is a chore and it's so hard.
Dinks.
Right? Dinks, yeah.
Double income, no kids.
Dumb is what I call it. If and I talk a lot about this on the show. I don't want to die and get eaten by my cats. I want to have a legacy, and I want my kids to be happy and make sure that I created a legacy of humans that loved me, and I didn't die alone, right? So there's a lot of like really important things that the government does that keeps people from having families. And the biggest one may even be, just making it impossible for people to think they can afford a family, right? Through inflation. And I mean, go try buy a house right now. Okay. I've been working on my credit for the last several years so that we could buy a house. And I'm at house buying level now. Okay. For the first time in a long time.
Yeah.
And even now I'm like, no, I can't buy a house right now. We can't do it. This is crazy. It's absolutely insane. And so yeah, Mike's right. Like the government, you don't have to explicitly say, hey, go have a family. You just got to return the power.
Stop doing the stupid crap you're doing now to prevent them from feeling good about it.
Yeah.
The other thing, Josh, to your credit, you spend time, how do I say this politically correctly, not hiding how important your faith is to you.
Sure. Yeah.
And I appreciate that a great deal. I was raised by a Lutheran and a Calvinist, and my faith is the only reason I'm alive today.
Sure.
On any number of levels. I do believe that the federal government and all governments would do us a great big favor in a really profound way if government officials didn't just assume it was their business to talk about culture at all.
Right.
One of the things that bothers me is that I do believe that our culture has been undermined, supplanted by the government playing such a deep role in our lives and at such a detailed, granular level, right?
Ryan, do you need a minute to look up supplanted?
As though
Are you gonna?
He's just teasing you.
Like, you're the one with the bigger.
Hey, I know big
vocabulary
words
here.
and stuff. Okay,
He's
I
just
can't spell
teasing
my
you.
entire vocabulary, but it's big.
Hey, I can't spell anyone's vocabulary. I can't even spell vocabulary. Okay, so don't feel like you need to be defensive because Josh is teasing you. But I do believe that the government has fostered this environment of authoritarianism where these politicians feel like it's their business to talk about absolutely anything. And for this reason, it is growing into something that I think a lot of us recognize as a new type of religion. Right?
Yep.
People have a faith in government institutions, in politicians, in some of the stupid shit that governments do that is weird. It's absolutely weird. And if we could just reverse that, it would foster an environment that would be more conducive to raising a family in a much more healthy way.
Yeah.
I have a question for you, Mike.
I do.
So there was a government official, the Prime Minister of Japan, actually, who gradually ramped up about the declining birth rate in Japan, and basically by the end of his life, he essentially said, young people, you need to start fucking now. Like that.
Well,
He's not wrong. I'm just not sure it's a public official's role to say that out loud.
Yeah, I do. I don't think that there's anything wrong with government officials saying, hey, our birth rates are not doing very good in the United States. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And I think that there's, it's a good thing to say, hey, we're going to start. You can be a government official and say, hey, guess what? For the first time in 100 years, we're going to remove all of the barriers that make it hard for you to have a family, because you should have a family. You should be able to have a family. You should be able to, as a human being, do the one thing that human beings are supposed to do and have a family. But the government has made it very hard purposely. It's all by design. And I talk a lot about Yuri Bezmenov on this show, and how Yuri came over, defected from Russia, and talked a lot about how the communists are going to get into your institutions, and they're doing it right now. This is the playbook. They're getting into your schools, they're getting into your government, they're getting into the corporate news media, they're getting into all these things, and they're attacking the family, and they're going to attack your faith, and they're going to destroy these institutions on purpose, right? And
every year is worse than the previous year.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
exactly. And now there's 3 churches up the street from me with rainbow flags on the front of the church, right? Like, and don't get me wrong, I don't think there's if you want to be gay, be gay. Like, when the churches are starting to tell you that it's okay to just do these things, and nobody cares, God's fine with it.
That's a shift.
It's a shift. That's a
shift.
big shift.
It's a big shift.
That's a
Very
big shift.
big.
It's not a small shift. That's a big shift. Yuri Bezmenov was right, and he warned us, right, that this was going to happen. So, like, having a government official, it's like, look, we know that the communists have come in and tried their very hardest to ruin the family and ruin your faith and destroy what you were made to do as a human. And we're going to remove those barriers. We're done. We're not doing that anymore as a government. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I don't. Now, me saying you must go, I'm not going to be like, you got to have 2 babies, right? Like that's, you know,
What are you doing Friday night?
I'd like to be that guy, you know, as much as I'd like to be, you know, because my own personal belief that you should have as many babies as God wills, right? Like, like I really believe that. I think if you want to have a big family, you should be able to have a big family. And in fact, I think it's important that you have a big family and you have lots of kids because they're best friends. I know they love each other.
But the government that assumes that it's their role to tell you
To do that is the bad government.
also assumes the role to say, well, you can only have one.
Right.
And the tricky spot that governments would be in is the things that they could potentially do to kind of skew things so people have more kids would be educate women less educated women have more kids, get rid of birth control. Are you coming out in favor of repealing the 19th Amendment?
No, he's not. No, he's not.
I mean,
Let's go!
potentially. And then I encourage people to be more religious, which all of those things would be potentially detrimental to the government because, you know, people that are religious are less dependent on the government and are less religious toward the government. You replace them. If you take women out of the workforce, you're going to have your economy's going.
Are we absolutely sure about that?
I don't know. No.
Yeah,
Because our
it
economy
does.
was just fine when women stayed home and raised babies.
Your total GDP is going to
The GDP. Hey, I want you to understand something. The GDP is a giant fiat lie, dude. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter.
So
Mike's laughing at me because he's.
I'm
Now,
just saying, Ryan, if they don't go to work, they have to go do something else.
But if a woman
But if they-
decides to stay home, right? If a woman decides to stay home,
yes.
and that decision is a good decision for her and her family,
Mm-hmm.
has the family's welfare gone up or has it gone down?
What do you mean by like? What do you
Well,
mean
I
by
guess
welfare?
Yeah.
their
Like-
happiness,
Okay, yeah.
their goodness,
Mhm.
the goodness
it's
of
gone
life.
Up.
What?
It's gone up. But
That's
but
exactly right.
That's
And
not
if
what the
GDP
government
suggests something bad has happened, then GDP is a great big fucking lie, like your host just told you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, the Economist agrees with me. I'm
Yeah.
just saying.
Yeah, but in terms of government officials, GDP would be something that they care about quite a bit, and then also
Sure,
another thing they
sure.
care about quite a bit. Is
Well, they
tax
can't
revenue.
tax, right? They can't tax the value of a woman staying at home.
Yes, which
Right, so
which
that's a
becomes
problem.
There you go.
Kind of an Ouroboros.
And so we don't want to say that
issue
GDP
because-
itself is a big lie, but the way that politicians and other people use it is a big
Yes.
lie. That's probably more fair to GDP.
It's like
GDP's gotten a bad rap.
It's like stats for anything. GDP is just like stats for anything. You can
Yeah.
twist it in any way you want to. Make
Maybe
your point.
GDP would go
Women
down,
staying
but
home, in the short term, that's going to boost the GDP and things, the numbers that you care about. But in the long term, it's going to lower the birth rate, going to lower your tax base and your workforce, and the amount of people that innovate for your economy that actually drives the growth. And it's in the long term, it's going to kill it.
Yes, women staying at home might reduce GDP
In the short term,
as we measure it.
Mhm.
It might reduce GDP because we don't measure as part of national income the value of staying home. That's a measurement problem, though. Our welfare is still better off when people make better decisions for themselves and their families. Is it possible that women staying at home would lead to lower consumption rates and investment rates if you didn't measure? Again, if you didn't measure as investment the investment in her children that time represents, sure. But these are measurement problems. Society is still better off when women and men make better decisions for their families. And I think that if the government got out of doing the stupid shit that it does to subsidize what it views as good policies that we know are bad policies for families, we would be better off.
Yeah.
Listen, hold on.
I agree
Okay.
with you. I'm just trying to
Yeah.
provide a little
I'm
perspective.
gonna yell at Ryan again. It's gonna happen. It's coming. Listen, Ryan. I obviously talk about Gerald Ford signing in Title 40 in law, right, for Social Security, and how we went from like 1 in 60 families was a fatherless home to 1 in 4 families is a fatherless home.
We need to say that's an overall average of all Americans.
Right.
There are certain groups in America where that number is much larger.
Much larger. Yeah.
Much larger.
Okay.
But all groups
It's
are
dark.
catching up.
Yeah, all groups are.
Yes.
To be
Yeah,
fair, all
Yes.
groups are catching up. There may
Correct.
be some groups that are chronologically ahead, but we're
Yes.
all headed in the same
But
direction.
here, hold on,
All
shut up,
groups,
Ryan.
highly religious
Ryan,
groups.
shush. Let me finish my one thought that I'm trying to have here, okay? And so with that, we've seen an increase of tenfold in violent youth offenders, homeless and runaway youth, school dropouts, and many other terrible societal collapsing types of things. Okay, and I mean a lot. We're talking 84%.
Mental health problems.
Yeah, mental health problems. 84,
Drug use.
92% of mass shooters are from fatherless homes. I mean, there's such a correlation here that anybody that wants to argue these stats with me is going to be in a bad spot. Okay, what do you think if tomorrow the government said, you know what, we're going to cut all this stuff, we're going to get back your financial stability and rights, and we're just going to stop, we're going to get out of this game, and all of a sudden mothers got to stay home. My wife stays home with kids. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, the mom could stay home with the kids. The dad can go to a normal 8-hour-a-day job 5 days a week and come home, and you guys have the perfect life. You could buy a house. You can have 2 vehicles. You can do all the things that you used to be able to do in society when we were on our way to being a society that retired at 50 years old, because we are no longer. Now you're going to work till you die.
Mhm.
Do you think that those stats that I just gave you, the 1 in 4 fatherless homes, the 82% of violent youth offenders, all these things, do you think those would drop or go up
I think they would drop, but
significantly? Not a little bit.
I
Significantly.
don't think it would be
50%.
as dramatic as you think.
50% drop minimum, guaranteed, dude. And you know why I know that? Because we've already done this in society. We already had this society where moms got to stay home with kids and dads went to work and they could retire at 65 years old, right? We already had this society. And you know what violent youth offenders were at? Like 25% of what they are today.
But that
Minimum,
society,
maximum.
Mhm.
the women weren't gaslit for 20 years that staying at home and being a mother is a bad thing, and that you have to
Do
be a
you
career
think that
woman.
most women in America, this is a crazy question and no one can really answer this with the full chest, right? But do you think that most women want to get up and leave their children every day? Do you think that it's would you even say that 50% of women want to get up and leave their children every day?
Once they have children, no.
Oh, well, no shit.
But we're approaching the point where the majority of women under 30 don't have children.
Yeah, and most of those women are going to die alone without any generational anything. So like they're still, the women that are going to carry on are going to be women who have children, right? Their legacies. So like that's the thing is like, what percentage of women do you think today, given the opportunity to stay home with their children and still have a home and a car and all these things, would take the opportunity to stay home with their children? I'm betting you it's
All of them.
a lot.
All of them.
It's not all of them.
Look, one
Not
of the
all
things,
of them. It's a lot, though. It's a lot, Ryan.
Yeah,
Dude,
one of
yeah.
the things that I think needs to be said, Josh, is first of all, you're right, but it's also important, I think, for us to recognize that public policy is and necessarily must be downstream from culture. For these things to really take hold and to change means that we need cultural change, and those cultural changes
Correct.
can't just come from changes in public policy.
Right.
A lot of the crappy public policy we have is because our culture has, I suppose I need to be careful here just for a moment. Our culture is not as healthy as it once was.
Correct.
Agreed.
That's not a very dramatic statement. I'm watering that way down.
I think we hear you.
Really mean, Mike.
I think we hear you.
And so the course correction is really a lot more profound. I think Josh is right that if you reverse all this bad public policy, you would get dramatic and rapid effects that are going in the right direction. But you wouldn't clean up all of it. That we need a lot of cultural change that I think as libertarian politicians we need to be really careful about talking about, because our role is to talk about public policy. And when people hear us talk about cultural change, I think they naturally worry, what are you going to do with government to
Right.
force down our throats your version of what you think cultural change should be?
That happens a lot in just casual discussion. I'll have with my friends, and they'll go, "Oh, what would you do as a libertarian?" I go, "Well, I wouldn't do anything. That's a cultural thing. That's to this, whatever group of people we're talking about, all Americans or certain groups." I go, "Well, that's their group's problem. That's not a problem for the government.
Yeah.
You can't fix it that way."
Yeah.
That's well
That's-
said. And that's
Yeah.
not to say it's unimportant.
You can take away the
right?
bad stuff, but you can't put government in charge of fixing a
Right.
cultural problem in society. It's just not. It just doesn't work.
Right. And it bothers me when people assume what you mean is that it's not important enough for government to be
Right.
involved with.
Right.
And I often find myself saying it's actually too important for me to allow the government to get in here and try to help.
Yeah.
Right. It's one of those things that we just don't want government screwing up.
It can
Well,
be a tough sell to
listen,
some
I
people.
think after we lock up, 90 to 100% of the COVID regime, a lot of the stuff's going to go. We're putting them, some of them belong under Guantanamo, but some of them in Guantanamo too. And I know I say that in jest because, when people are like, "Oh, you're a libertarian, you want to close Guantanamo Bay." And I'm like, well, as long as we're using it for terrorists, we should use it for the real terrorists, right? The
Mhm.
people who, locked
Legitimate
their family,
terrorists.
legitimately brought this tyranny and this terrorism to our shores. Was our own government, dude. At the end of the day, we've had a couple of terrorist attacks here and there, and of course 9/11, which could have been perpetrated by any number of people that we'll never know the truth about. But I do know for a fact, in front of my own eyes, our government, perpetrated all kinds of crazy terrorism over the last 4 years on its innocent people. It was an act of war against peaceful people, and they belong. If Guantanamo should exist, it should exist for those people.
Well, it's certainly a form of aggression.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not quite comfortable calling it terrorism because I don't know that they did it for purposes of terrorizing. I think they did it for purposes of tyranny, which is a subtle and perhaps unimportant distinction. I want to plug what I want to plug.
Sure, yeah,
I'm dying to plug what I want to plug.
We're getting to the end of this thing. I mean,
Yeah, so if I'm going to get my
this is the
plug
last,
in,
yeah, this is the last getting to
This
the
is my
end of
last
this.
shot to get
we've
my
gone,
plug.
We've gone the 20 minutes over. We're getting to the end of this thing. This is the Midwest goodbye. This is what
time we
do.
mean it.
Yeah, this is the Midwest goodbye, right? Like,
Yeah.
okay, I got to get going.
Well,
And now we're at the knee slap.
Yeah.
Okay? We're at the knee slap. Well, time to go, right? So, Mike, thank you so much for coming on. It's
Oh
been
my
an
goodness,
absolute
thank you.
pleasure.
plug your thing.
Yeah, where can
Plug
people
my thing.
Yeah, where can people find you, support
I'm
you,
a little
listen
uncomfortable
to
with
you, all
Ryan
those
telling me
things?
to plug my thing.
You should be too, because he's definitely the gay one on the show. So
No. Look, I want to plug the fact that we have an AI bot that is up and running. I think it's very fun. It's called Lisa, the Libertarian Intelligence System application. You can find it at libertarianintelligence.org. And it's very fun. It's a bot. I don't know if everyone in your audience has played with an AI bot yet or not.
oh yeah,
I defeated Lisa.
yeah,
I did
Yeah,
defeat Lisa.
yeah, you can. You can.
I may have helped the Fortune 5.
I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, you two are not allowed.
Getting
Everyone
a
in the United
chatbot.
States is allowed to
So-
use it except for you two. All right, Josh, I'm just talking to you and your listeners, okay? These two
fair.
are not allowed on.
fair.
I encourage everyone to go on, try it out. I think you'll find that it's fun. It gives terrific answers for 99% of what
It was
adults
fun.
should be asking,
yeah, even
okay?
the defeat was funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, I posted it.
When you get an answer that you find weird or wrong, let me know, because we're still in a training phase, right? It's a growth and development project, but it's a very fun project, and we think that it can make a contribution. We hope a significant contribution to spreading the idea of libertarianism, how some of our solutions work beyond the Libertarian Party and beyond the reaches of YouTube.
Right. Yeah, who controls the AI kind of controls the narrative sometimes.
I will
And
share
we
my
want to take a
defeat.
step
yeah.
in that. We want
Yeah.
to start learning how to do that
Yep.
to better advance what really matters.
I agree. Where can people support your campaign at, man? That's so
Can't.
weird for me to say that.
No,
dude.
they can't. They can't.
Listen, if you're
None of the
watching this show,
websites
we
work.
know whose campaign you're supporting. But Mike is great, by the way.
Well, yeah, in addition to supporting your campaign, people can go to MikeTermott.com, which is tricky to spell because there's 2 A's in Termott, but everyone in Western Michigan knows that.
And they've
It's in
already
the
been to your
thumbnail,
they've already
people.
been to your campaign.
No,
website,
they've
so
already
you're
been
good,
there.
yeah.
Absolutely. And they're complaining about the lack of Calvinism in my AI bot. Yeah, I'm not even sure if Lisa knows what Calvinism is. I better go check and train her on that. It's easier to go to goldnewdeal.org,
Sure.
Which is what the platform is all about. You can go to libertarianintelligence.org and you can flip back and forth among them. And my real contact information is there. So you can text me, you can email me, let me know what your thoughts are. If I say anything that bothers you, let me know. If your phone number is not already in my phone, like Josh's is, but if anyone else texts me or phone calls me and I don't know who you are, then we'll have to text first and I can call you back. But sometimes I answer the phone and don't know who it is, and that can be very fun and very weird at the same time.
Yeah, I don't do that because of bill collectors, but bill collectors and government agencies, no, I'm just kidding.
But we repeat ourselves.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I've had a pleasure having you on, man. Ryan, you got anything before we take off?
Follow me on Twitter at BulldogGamer28. Give me some yep cocks in the chat.
Yeah, we didn't get any yep cocks in the chat for our good friend Ryan today.
Yeah, David Brady was.
Was there a couple?
He was giving me some yep Iowa caucuses.
Brady's cool as shit though.
Oh,
That's how he rolls,
he's
man.
He's a
homie. He's 18 now. I think. We've had him on the show. You here when?
Yeah.
You were here,
Wait.
right?
Yeah, I was
David
here.
and Lorenzo.
Yeah, we had David and Lorenzo, and then we had Brett Lindenfelser drove down, and then of course we had who else? We had some others in the studio too. Derek Lutman and we've had some people in the studio.
Your studio is very fun, by the way. If I can give you a plug,
yeah.
If anyone out there ever gets an invitation from these three guys to join in the studio, I encourage you to accept the invitation. Right?
Yep.
Even if it means travel, even if it means some cold weather.
Well, the goal was to
place.
Eventually be able to fly our guests out. That's the goal. And so if you become a member,
that's a little extravagant.
Yeah, I mean all the big shows do it. And so if you become a supporting member of the show, that's not my campaign. You're not supporting my campaign. You're supporting the show. And that is operating costs, but also gets us a little bit closer. If you become even a $5 monthly subscriber to the Patreon, we are going to start doing members only shows again. I think next week. Hopefully. And so those shows that you're paying for, that's extra content. There's already hundreds of after hour shows there, including one with Tom Woods saying fuck that you've never heard him say before. But if you do, and he debated on whether a hot dog was a sandwich or not, and then said fuck at the end. And so if you become a supporting member of the show, you're supporting the show, and it's the end goal is to set up this apartment here so that they have a place to stay. We can fly them out. They can do the show, eat dinner, hang with family, go home, all that stuff. So
very fun idea.
Yeah, that's the goal for the show eventually, and I think we'll get there.
We have a terrific show here. I've really enjoyed being on it, and I enjoyed these two guys.
Yeah, they're great.
Tremendously. They are great.
We give Ryan a lot of shit, but that's because he's like our little brother.
Yeah, no, I get that.
Yeah, we love him to death.
My role.
Yeah,
we bullied him into being a father.
Yeah, we bullied him into procreating, so that's pretty cool.
So the government can do it.
Yeah, we can.
The government can do it. You will have children.
I take shit so I can go on my autistic rants.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah.
And then we just call him gay and move on every time. That's kind of how it works. But he brings a lot to the show. He is our Ryan. He's our
Ian
Ryan.
Crossland.
No, he's our Ryan Crossland.
Oh, I've
No,
upgraded.
it's RIAN. Ryan Crossland. No, wait, I love Ian too. I've been on Tim Pool's show twice, and as much shit as that guy gets, he's one of the sweetest hippies I've ever met. Just a sweetheart. AJ, you got anything before we take off?
Yeah, follow me on X, poison_tip. And I did some live streaming during the event today.
Yeah,
we had an issue with our Twitter.
Live tweeted some of my stuff.
Yeah, I post. Excuse me, they're not tweets anymore. They're posts. I posted to X.
X posts.
I live posted on X during the forum today.
The same people who call it X are the people who say bruh and sussy baka. Okay,
I got a blue check.
Twitter.
I'm paying these people $11 a month, man.
Are you?
Is it up to 11?
Yeah, for the
Yeah,
What
I'm paying
happened to
11.
7?
Listen, I'm
It was.
I'm no
That's
Rizzler
basic.
dog. I'm not going to
It's like a
call it
basic
X. I'm
thing.
always going to call it Twitter.
Yeah, it's Twitter too.
Yeah.
It's Twitter and X.
And I don't care. And Twitter pays me. I don't pay Twitter.
Oh, really?
When people give me shit on Twitter, they're like, "Oh, you got a blue check mark. You pay $11 a month to use this platform." I'm like, do you understand that they pay me anywhere from $30 to $100 every 2 weeks just to tweet?
Oh,
Yeah,
I'm over 500. I got to monetize mine.
you better. So
what I'll do.
So like, yeah, I pay $11 and they pay me back, 3 times that every 2 weeks. So why wouldn't I pay the $11?
I could probably at least pay
You
off
can't
my
monetize
subscription.
without paying the $11. So it's totally worth it to pay the $11 if you have enough of a following to get paid from it.
Yeah.
So really, the person in the situation when they're trying to mock me that's a dumbass is the one who can't figure out how to get paid by sitting at work and tweeting on their phone.
Right.
Okay. I'm just
There you
saying.
go.
Booyah.
Yeah, booyah,
That would be
bitch.
me.
Anyways, we got a great show for you guys on Thursday. Dave DeCamp from thegreatantiwar.com will be by the show. He won't be in the studio, but he's going to step on, I think, 45 minutes. I'm going to look for another guest, too, so we can do an hour and a half, and we'll have 2 guests on.
Cool.
If I don't find one by then, I'll let you know. I do need to let you know soon for the
Sounds good.
I
thumbnail.
probably won't be there on Thursday.
Okay.
My grandfather passed away.
Yeah,
And
I know.
funerals on Friday, visitations on Thursday.
That's fine, man.
It's a 3-hour drive.
Yeah.
And I don't want to take off at 7 a.m. with a 2-month-old.
Yeah, no, we get it, man.
Yeah. Be safe traveling, man.
AJ, you'll be here.
Yeah, I'll be here Thursday.
Yep.
Mhm.
AJ will be here. We'll have a great show. I love you guys to death. Thank you so much for coming in and hanging out with us for a special Sunday show. I do want to get back to doing 2 shows a week. And so I think that we're going to start doing that soon. Of course, members only shows will return hopefully next week as well. So if you want to become a member, go to patreon.com/breakthecyclejs. You can also, if you hate Patreon, like a lot of people do, we also have a, what's the other one?
Subscribe Star?
Subscribe Star. And it's the same, subscribestar.com/breakthecyclejs. Or you can just join the YouTube, and that pays us through Google. But just remember, Google takes 1/3 of everything that we make. So it's much more than what Patreon or Subscribe Star takes. So, but we are going to try and get back to monetizing the show. I know that people are like, oh, you want money? Yeah, we want money so that we can make the show
we
bigger.
like
That's
money.
the goal. And you guys can watch us 5 nights a week, which would be the ultimate goal. So, Mike, you got something before we go?
I got thanks for letting me be here with you guys. By the way, we also have a book coming out. Same name as the platform, A Gold New Deal.
Nice.
It's on Amazon. It's a few bucks, I think.
Nice. Go check out Mike's book. Don't vote for him for president. Vote for me. But if he gets the nomination, vote for Mike for president. I would be more than happy to work for Mike's campaign if it comes down to it. I love you guys to death. I'll see you Thursday for our next show. Don't forget to break the cycle.
Due to legal reasons, I just have to explain. The lyrics of my last song may seem to contain a violent call to action in the verse and refrain, but I just meant it in Minecraft. The helicopter part was in reference to GTA 5 and the things you do. So any violence you commit, I am not an excuse, because I just meant it in Minecraft. Well, Chipper is my friend and he's constantly cold. Accusations of incitement getting totally old. Make your own choices, yeah, you have control, because I just meant it in Minecraft. Obviously, I would never advocate force unless there's due process and a trial, of course. And if you're convicted, we will make you a corpse in Minecraft, just in Minecraft. Good, nothing I mean, you know it. No product dinners, cause it closed from COVID. Holy shit, I think I'm a poet.